tone.
All right, is that better? Okay, so say good evening, Mayor, members of council, planning commission. Thank y'all for coming tonight for the presentation on the zoning ordinance update. It's been a long time coming, so I'm going to hopefully give a brief overview of everything that is being included in the zoning ordinance update. Throughout the presentation, feel free to stop. It won't be a presentation where we wait to the end. Like if you have any questions or comments, feel free to stop the presentation and ask questions. And also keep in mind this is still in the draft phase, so we can still make revisions and add things as well. But as you'll see in the next couple of slides, it's been developed over the course of about 2.5 years, almost 3 years now, with public discourse, a deliberative process with public surveys, meetings with our planning commission, virtual meetings, virtual surveys, and in-person community meetings as well. So just to give an overview of how we got here to the point where we're at today, we had a UDA meeting which was based on the VDOT grant in 2018, and using a few of the parameters that were recommended by consultants at that time, we took those few things that they were recommending with the zoning ordinance and wanted to build it out to actually overhaul and redevelop our entire zoning ordinance from the ground up. We had a joint meeting at the War Memorial in January 2019 based on the UDA's recommendations, the consultants' recommendations. And then from that, we picked a group of topics that we wanted to really focus on. And throughout the course of the next year, we had work sessions with our planning commission to hone in on those subject areas. Throughout the time, the staff were also commencing into the research and development phase of all the feedback that they were getting from the planning commission on that time. A lot of that research is benchmarking other localities, seeing what other localities are doing, both within the Commonwealth and also across the nation. We had an online public survey campaign during the peak of COVID because we didn't feel like we could have an in-person meeting safely. But we used Google Forms, and we were able to have the surveys in that format. We used those surveys, and we opened a second phase, which went more in depth on the revisions to the zoning ordinance before having an actual in-person community meeting, which we felt it was safe to have an in-person community meeting. After we had a solid draft in place, we had the legal review of the entire draft, and then we had the in-person community meeting, a joint, and then here we are today. I want to skip forward in time. So here we are, and then after this meeting, we'll be able to take y'all's feedback tonight, both the planning commission and the town council, and develop a final draft that can be presented for public hearing. So major subject areas that we're going to be focusing on tonight, they're not isolated to these major subject areas, but signage, accessory dwelling units, homestays, off-street parking regulations, dimensional regulations like setbacks, proposed new and revised use regulations, and then the landscaping ordinance as well. Starting with the sign regulations, one of the major goals of these revisions is there was a major Supreme Court ruling with the Reed versus the town of Gilbert a few years ago. It had major First Amendment implications. So one of the first major goals was to go through our entire zoning ordinance, or the sign section of our zoning ordinance, and to make sure that it was in line with those First Amendment protections and a lot of these changes. And this wasn't just something that the town of Vinton had to do. This was something that every locality in the entire United States had to do. And with Mike Lockaby's help, we were able to tailor that language to make sure that it was content neutral. And even though it's difficult to do that, we've achieved a nice product that will be able to still be enforced effectively while still protecting everybody's free speech, whether it be commercial or residential use everywhere in the town. It was also important to make sure that the ordinance was user-friendly, that had tables and graphics and definitions that were clearly easy to read and to understand, that any person could pick it up and understand what they could have for their business to effectively market. And that was another major goal, is to make sure that businesses can be proactive in their business promotion, but then also having that element of public safety and making sure that, there's traffic involved, and then making sure that you're tailoring it, having an aesthetic environment where there's a lot of economic growth, that there's a balance between both the things between business promotion, people's freedom of speech, and other factors. So the sections you'll see, we expanded definition list to be more clear, and these are the major revisions we'll get into tonight. First, as I mentioned, we added one of the purpose statements about the regulations being content neutral. As I mentioned, this has to do with the First Amendment and the Reed versus Gilbert Supreme Court ruling. And you'll see that there's certain things in the zoning ordinance that will now appear to be a little oddly worded. So in the past, you'd say something like real estate sign. That's actually no longer there's no longer an acceptable phrase to use in a zoning ordinance. You have to say a sign that is on a lot that is for sale. That is a content neutral sign phrase. That a real estate sign is something that's not content neutral. So that's just one example of the really minuscule things we had to go through and hone in on. Expand the definition section to make sure that every sign type and way to measure and way to really just define a way to measure a sign, sign area, and what is even getting out to what is a sign, where it can be located, is expanded on. Exempted signs, some of these are already exempted, but they needed to be more refined. So, for example, on-premises directional signs, the top picture there is an example of an on-premise directional sign. It just shows, entrance and exit, but adding so that, so a company's logo can be on those signs, and, usually those are located near the curb cuts where someone's entering a business. Routine sign maintenance and substitution of messages. This is actually a really huge change, and one that will effectively change our permitting procedures. Right now, when you have a refacing of a wall sign or a freestanding sign, every time you reface any kind of sign face of the existing sign, from really the beginning of when we were doing sign permits, you had to come and get a new sign permit to do that. From now on, as long as it's an existing freestanding or existing wall sign, if you're not expanding the square footage of the area or you're just changing out a panel, you will no longer need a sign permit to change those for a refacing. That has to do with the fact that you can't regulate between messages, and you're remaining content neutral. So commercial versus non-commercial speech, you can't really regulate that. So really when we see a freestanding sign is a box, and there's that square footage in that box, and whatever goes in that box is up to the private property owner. Uniform road signage, that has to do with flagging and traffic safety. Wall graphics is more like murals and public art as that becomes more popular. Window covers, that has to do with buildings that are vacant. If we have new windows coverage rules, which we'll get into later, about how much window sign, how much the window sign can cover the glass area. So this kind of addresses the fact that if someone wants to put like the brown paper or tarping up while they're constructing or the property's vacant, then obviously it won't trigger that stipulation. It's just something that covers the grounds of new regulations. Open and closed signs is more honed in, and then a pretty popular topic is additionally flags, which flags are a difficult subject area because when it comes to free speech, there's a major free speech symbol. So what we've come up with, and what it seems to be working across many localities in the state, would be to have it so that you regulate more of the flagpole, just for public safety reasons. So for single family and two family, the flagpole will be limited to 30 feet, and then any kind of use outside of that category would be limited to 60 feet. So a place like Kroger or any kind of like non-residential place would have a ability to have a flagpole up to 60 feet, and the maximum of 3 flags is what's being recommended. However, we wanted to have safety valve that if someone wanted to increase their flagpole height, they could through the special use permit process that could be approved by town council. And then there's setbacks about flagpoles, which just has to do with, how far it can be set back from the front property line, rear and side property lines. So there's a grand opening exception. So most animated signs like pennants and balloons and inflatables, those are typically in the prohibited section of our ordinance. However, through conversations that we had with council and the Plan Commission, we saw out a way that there would be a way for animated signs to be allowed in certain circumstances. And one of the big circumstances would be someone's grand opening, because when you open a business in Vinton, you want to be able to draw as much attention to it as you can, at least within a few initial weeks. So one thing we're recommending is, and what is already the case in the present, that pennants, streamers, and other gas-filled devices are already allowed in those commercial zoning districts within 14 days of the business being opening. But this just makes it more clear that animated signs like the wacky inflatable Tube Man would be allowed within the 14 days of the grand opening of the business. But to protect safety, because they can be distracting when people are driving, what we recommend is them being 15 feet away from a street line or a road line and closer to the building entrance.
I got some questions on this one, Nathan. Okay, so we're going to make an exception for a new business, right, for 14 days. So I looked these up today, and I can buy one of these for $450 that I can use for 14 days, right? So then I got to throw it away because I can't use it anymore because my business is established. After 14 days in Vinton, I can't promote my business anymore. So if I wanted to have a end of the month sale just for one day, I can't put my sign out to draw attention to people. However, now we say that it's because it's distracting, right? And I'm not like putting out any other businesses, or the sign up there, the William Byrd sign, the lit up sign, that's not distracting. Wood Service Center has a digital sign that displays different messages throughout the day, but that's not distracting. A 10-foot tube sitting up against the business is distracting to motorists and causes accidents. I just have a hard time saying, for our citizens, our business owners, that hey, you can buy these things online and it's free to buy. I mean, you have the right to buy them, you just can't use them in Vinton. And we've heard for years that it's hard to do business in Vinton because of our restrictions and things. And this is one step in the right direction, but I still, number one, I don't see these things at all, maybe once or twice. I don't see tomorrow or after this passes that every single business in Vinton goes and buys an inflatable animated sign and puts it out front of their business. Again, to me, it just seems like we're telling people what they can and can't own and use. So my opinion, I have the argument of the other distracting signs, but now they're tens of thousands of dollars, and that makes sense that I can't throw those away, but I'm not going to spend $450 and then throw it away after 2 weeks. Hopefully after 2 weeks my business is doing really good. I don't need like something to continue to draw business, but we all have sales that go on, especially around Christmas, or I mentioned, I was thinking Bob's has foot-long hot dogs, and they go buy one, and every Friday they put it out because hot dogs are on sale on Friday. Just a scenario, but they can't do it. They can't even do it at all because they've been open for 40, 50 years. So I don't know. I just think that, again, I go back to us telling people that they can't have something to operate to draw attention to their business when we already have things that is more distracting than a tube sign.
Yeah, and with the digital reader board signs, as I know there's language about how quickly the message can change with the 5 seconds, but I can understand those being distracting.
Well, it depends on what you look at. I mean, everything's distracting to anybody if you take your eyes off the road long enough to look at it. I don't see how we single out one advertising vehicle versus all the other ones that are okay to use.
Yeah, and I know that, and the difficulty is like the definition of animated signs with it being expanded, just like any kind of sign that moves and flutters. So this one falls in the category of animated signs just because it happens to move and flutter.
Right, but those, again, like I said before at our virtual at the War Memorial was, these streamers, the pendant streamers and all, they cost a lot of money for people to go out and make them and have them made. The $1.25 signs that's always out in front of my house underneath the mirror there for tree services and gutter cleaning services and lawnmower services and everything, it's a billboard there every single week. And that looks like trash everywhere because they blow around, nobody ever picks them up. But if I'm going to go spend money on pendant streamers and these tube signs, I'm going to bring them into my business every night. I'm going to put them out when I want to. I'm going to kind of take care of them. I'm not just going to litter up the town with these cardboard signs that stay there forever. So I just think that, we're hindering businesses when we tell them what they can and can't advertise with. Just, again, my opinion on.
Well, this is exactly what this meeting tonight is about.
Right.
Is to provide that feedback from council members, from planning commission members. This is staff recommendations, but it's not final. This is up for debate. This is up for your direction on what you would like to see changed. So by all means, this is exactly what this opportunity is for. We have, been consulting with our attorneys. We've been receiving feedback, but that's not the end of it. Before we finalize it, this is the type of feedback we want. And if it is the council and planning commission's desire that we make an edit to this and extend it or remove it altogether, then this is your opportunity to request such. So
I agree with Keith, 100%. And the mayor can attest. Actually, I think she was sitting right back there, and I was instrumental because I was asked by the community to put that digital sign in at Washington Avenue and the bypass. And I was accused that the first fatality in the first 6 months that occurred at that intersection, because somebody was reading that sign, was going to be on my conscience for the rest of my life. I mean, honestly, she said that. And didn't she? Yeah, she did.
Sure did.
And, but the distraction part to me is that the signs that's got the little black letters, that they take the little magnet post and put them on them, to me, that's the most distracting sign there is because, you may read faster than I do. And you're right about the digital signs. But the point that Keith makes, which is, in my opinion, 100% right, is that we have heard that it's difficult to do business in this town. Now, I get it. I get it that we've got a lot of momentum going into 2022. And, I get the tube signs, but I didn't know. I'll give you an example. It's a personal example. Patsy's after me to redo cell phones, and I didn't have a clue. Come down Hardy Road one day, and I saw 5G because I got a cabin up in Bath County. Well, I saw the map where T-Mobile has got this huge 5G network compared to Verizon, who we're with now. I'm coming down Hardy Road one day, and there's one of those right there in front of T-Mobile. And I went home and told her, I said, well, there's a T-Mobile in Benton. Because they used to be Sprint or whoever they used to be. So anyway, but I think Keith makes an excellent point to the fact of, and let's not necessarily go with the tube sign, but let's go back to his example of Bob's. And we're sitting down with the business that wants to have that special or wants to have that end of the month sale, and they're looking at us and saying, so what's the best way for me to advertise that? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't answer that at the moment. So, is it the tube sign? Is it the different signs that we have? But for them to have the opportunity to advertise a special, and it may not be the tube sign. It may be something else. But anyway, I just, looking at that, I just think the opportunity to give businesses that opportunity to advertise it. And they come in and say, I'm going to have a end of the month special. Okay, you got 3 days to advertise your end of the month special. If it starts on this day, and it's hypothetical, advertise it these 3 days prior to the special and take that down or take whatever down. So anyway, that was my point, would be how to advertise.
Mike, I think you've made a good point. I actually think what might work is kind of somewhere in the middle ground. I do think that existing businesses, like you use an example, Bob's, ought to have the opportunity to use signs for special promotions. I will also, oh boy, here we go. I will also tell you that I think an overabundance of those type of, is that called a tube sign there? Is that what
Yeah, we
you're
can call
referring-
it the tube sign.
tends to clutter. It tends to add to clutter, and I think after a while becomes unattractive. I think one of the good things about doing business in Vinton is it's an attractive place, and we have to be careful and have limits on, in my opinion, on a lot of things, and signs is certainly one of them, in order to maintain that attractiveness. So I certainly would not oppose those signs altogether, or more than just ad opening. I think you've made a good point there, Keith. But I do think that there should be reasonable time limits on those things, and maybe even spacing also, because I do, well, I hate to point out a certain particular area, but one of the first committees I was ever on in this town was the sign committee. And what we heard, you remember that one, don't you? Oh, boy. What we heard constantly is we don't want our main thoroughfares to look, I hate to say this, like Williamson Road. Now, Roanoke City has done a terrific job in imposing certain regulations and everything, and it looks much, much better than it did back, well, several years ago, 30 years ago, let's say. And so I think as a kind of a caution, I think we should be aware that we don't want to go there. You know, we don't want to go that far of not having any limitations. But you've made a good point. Yeah. Now, as far as, I don't know, as far as the purchase of those things, I always assumed that they rented those things from some advertising company or something. I really don't know anything about. But
I mean, that makes sense if you rented it, but I mean, as far as, you know, and to your point, maybe we do have some type of, I wouldn't want to see one up for 365 days out of the year, because by the end of it, it's ratted and tatted and torn up, and hopefully a business owner wants that to reflect their business. So if it's an old dungy, dirty, ripped up sign, as a business owner, I wouldn't put it out in front of my business.
Right.
You know, I would want a new one or something like that, but just for the first 14 days, I think, number one, we're not going to have to worry about it, because no one's going to spend $450 for 14 days and then throw it away.
That's a good point.
So, you know, we've kind of like made this to where, yes, you can do it, you can invest the money, but you probably shouldn't, because you're going to have to throw it away in 14 days, or not use it ever again in 14 days.
Yeah.
So, and it goes back to me, and my whole thing is, I don't care about the signs. It's us telling people, you can't own these in Vinton. That's my whole crux here, is we're running their business for them and telling them they can't use this sign.
Right.
Well, I think that you have to have something in place that everybody will be able to read and understand.
Amen.
So it has to be, you know, I may not be the person that would read something and be able to pick it apart, but the lawyer would be able to read it and pick it apart and know exactly what it is. So we have to put it in terms so that everybody understands. And then we got to look at it from every angle to make sure that nobody can misread it. We have to go back and do that. I do think that, you know, we don't need to just do it for new businesses. We need to be able to, everybody ought to be able to have something with guidelines. And I think we need to have guidelines, because my idea of all these signs look good and Lori's idea of all these signs look good are totally two different things. I could have 15 and say, oh, don't they look good? Everybody can see my signs. And Lori would say, oh, 15, good Lord, what is she
More
thinking?
is not always
Yeah,
better.
yeah, less is more sometimes. So it's very challenging when we look at these ordinances because we have to make sure that everybody can understand it. So I'm not a big fan of the people who go up and down like this, the tube people, but the other ones that Keith and I have discussed, the flag ones, those are
those
really
are
nice.
nice.
Yeah, the feather.
But also, I'd
feather
rather,
flag? Talking
I'd
about the
rather
feather
see
flag?
the tube or the flags or something like that,
Then the,
many of those than those signs like Keith is talking about on the Broad Hair and Clearview, like just the ones that people stick up everywhere.
yeah.
That looks worse to me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Going down the road than something like that.
Maybe we need to get everybody's cell phone number to town of Benton and say to a business, look, advertise by text message, because that's what everybody's doing is looking at their phone. And by the way, the
No, but
chief
I
can
do-
attest, I don't think anybody wrecked looking at that digital sign yet up Washington Avenue, but anyway.
I do think that they're catchy and it's gonna turn your head. But I do think that we've got to, I agree with what everybody has
Yeah,
said.
excellent.
I agree with what everybody has said.
Me too, and-
Timelines, that we need to not tell the people, not promote
Right.
just good new businesses, that, we just need to make sure it's worded correctly, and maybe we can give them an example of something that we would recommend, maybe not say approved, but highly recommend that this is something that and then even find out if they can rent it somewhere, and maybe have that company's number or something ready, just to be able to help them get established, to know that we're happy for them to be here. I think at one point, we did have some people that were maybe a little discouraged with some things that they had to do when they moved their business or wanted to start their business in Benton, but I do not feel that that has been something that we have recently had to deal with. I think that everybody has wanted to move to Benton, and that it's been a good experience, and I feel like that with the staff that we have and the two groups that we have here tonight, the Planning Commission, Town Council, we can overcome anything. So I think that this will be a simple thing for us to correct.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like Keith said, everything can be distracting to certain
Exactly.
drivers. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a
so,
good point, yeah. I
Maybe
agree.
we check with other localities and find out, hey, what, if you open a business and your business has been open a year and, a business wants to advertise and they don't have, permanent, they don't have a sign out in front of their business, how do you let them advertise? You know what I'm saying?
So most localities, especially in our region, actually it requires like temporary sign permits every single time someone wants to put a sign out.
We had that.
And yeah, we used to until we put a moratorium on it as we figured these things out. And that's what you'll see in this presentation is we're actually recommending removing that temporary sign permit,
Right.
but having the set parameters with increased enforcement. But with that, having a set of signs that we recommend that are allowed, like the feather signs, which would be allowed,
Right.
A-frames, wall signs, the signs that stick in the ground, and then additionally, we've been developing graphics with, in addition to the definition list, so that if you don't know what a sign looks like, we actually have pictures that have examples of each sign type that we have in our definition of sign ordinance.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
I do agree with Sabrina, though. I do like the feather signs. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that,
Oh, yeah.
what are you talking about, right, the feather signs?
Yeah.
Right, I do like
Keith and I
that.
have discussed that
Thanks,
before,
Nathan.
too.
Yeah,
Oh, no worries.
I agree.
But
I
it def-
think one of the major points that Keith has made, I certainly want to endorse, is that I've always felt it's kind of unfair that a business that's been established all those years it's a little, or at least my understanding, it's been a little bit more difficult for them to have special promotional signs. So if someone's doing that when they're opening a business, they should certainly be allowed to do that if there's something special going on. It's a good point.
Thank you.
So, Mayor Gross, members of council, we'll be taking, obviously, notes tonight, and anything in particular that you have slight objections to or requests for revisions, we'll keep an accurate list of this, and we'll go back and touch these up somewhat in consultation with our attorneys to make sure that we're still within the legal bounds, but then we'll get those back to you prior to the next council meeting before any official vote. So we'll make sure that planning commission members as well as council get this. I'm sure there'll be additional revision requests tonight, so this will be one that we'll go back and tweak and try to modify to capture what you've suggested to us this evening.
Right, I'd be interested if there's some of the folks from the planning commission got a comment on this, or I'd be interested in that.
have we looked at what Blacksburg and places that are, what they're doing on that?
If they would all require, well, they would not allow wacky, the two-man, in any of the localities, in like Roanoke County, Rogue City, Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Christiansburg most likely allows it, but they all require, we'll probably be the first locality to remove the temporary sign permit in the valley and River Valley, this whole area of Southwest Virginia. Really, it's places across the nation and places in Northern Virginia that are starting to move toward removing that temporary sign permit.
So you've got this, is what you're trying to do balance. And so when you take when you're gonna take away the temporary, have to apply for a temporary sign, when you take that away, you gotta put some stuff in to make up for that, for how are we gonna enforce it without them coming in? So it's a difficult thing. I agree that we need to be consistent, and you're talking about this sign thing. Golly, we go back a long ways on that. And we find that from time to time. We've had some really funky sound signs in this town. We had a sign one time over in front of the bingo hall. And they took the zoning ordinance and maneuvered that thing so that they took a movable sign and put it in the ground. And it was legal what they did.
Let's think it outside the box.
But yeah, with Bob and Green Ink, this is what it said, so we're okay. And we went to them and said, look, that wasn't our intent, and they took it down. And then put a nice sign up. So it's a difficult thing, and it's good that we're number one out there to do this. And I don't think anybody's intent is to downplay or put water on that. We need to move ahead with that. So, hey, you don't have to do this in Vinton. You need to move your business here. We don't have that. Everybody else has that, but we don't have that. That's a selling point.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we're number one.
It is a great selling point, Dave. I mean, you got a great point. It's a wonderful selling point until you say, but you can't do this or have this,
Well, I understand.
So
It's balance.
to your point, it's a balance,
Balance
yes.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's never been an easy thing, and it still isn't gonna be an easy thing. We just have to work at it.
I
Yep.
do think the intent, by and large, for all these things is where we do say this is not allowed, is we have options where what is allowed. So that while we're saying no, we are saying what is also available. So while the two-man was not necessarily included, there are other things that we could direct them towards that would be more manageable or more easy to navigate. And I will say, for this item as well as most everything that we're discussing tonight, these are not Nathan's thoughts alone, these are not my thoughts alone, and I would say almost all cases that we're discussing, like this is a consolidation of many ideas and many other existing zoning ordinances that we have looked at, studied, modified, tweaked, combined to make what we feel like is a progressive look at zoning, be more business friendly, because we do know that's what council desired for us to try to tackle with these ordinance updates. So, not to say that they're not ripe for additional tweaking, but in all these cases, this isn't, one or two staff. This is a conglomeration of a lot of reviews and looks at other zoning ordinances, again, to learn from others who've already been down this road. We've got our own set of accounts, but, Nathan has talked to all his counterparts in our neighboring localities to say what is working, what is not working, and then in consultation with our attorneys, kind of tweaking it to make it legal and stick. So this is good, healthy conversation. I appreciate it very much. So Sarah was not able to be with us. I don't think most of you were aware, but Sarah is also in the Planning Commission, and she texted in just before the meeting, said she was not feeling well and didn't want to risk coming, but she's been texting me comments tonight, and I'll continue to pass those on, not that it can, it just, I wanted her to have her input, but she was of a like mind of many comments in this room tonight that she'd like to see a little more flexible for not just new businesses, but perhaps open it up a little bit more. So again, I think we've gotten some good feedback, some good direction on this item, and we can make some edits.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have a point for Mr. Peters. Just if she is watching online and texting you things, if you can just hold those to yourself.
Yes, sir.
I don't want there to be any issue of somebody asking if there's been some kind of an electronic meeting that she didn't call into. It's completely fine for her to be sending emails or text whatever to you, as long as you're not then relaying it back and forth.
Okay. No problem.
Good enough.
Bob, did you have anything in particular?
I agree with Dave. It's really a balancing act on how much you allow and how much you prohibit. I'm not a big fan of the floopy signs either. I like the feather signs.
Yeah.
But to Keith's point, if there could be, and I don't know what number you would arrive at, but for specials once a month, once every 6 months, that they would be allowed, so that they could, if they spend $400, $500 on an advertising element, that they'd be able to use it, not just for the first 14 days. And the people that are already have been in business, that right now they're restricted, prohibited from doing it. So, just like everybody says, it just needs to be run through the ringer one more time.
I agree. A lot of good comments.
Yeah, I will definitely make it to note to look back at specifically about the animated signs, while still avoiding permitting, because as we'll talk about later, taking out the permitting, but then having to try to figure out a way to do that without permitting, or there may be. Well, yeah, we'll definitely look into that for sure. Appreciate the feedback. Good segue, because we're talking about things that aren't permitted and things that are being proposed to be added to the prohibited list. You may see these around the tow behind or any kind of it says portable signs, and the definition builds it out more. But Mr. Stovall, you're talking about earlier about the changeable copy signs, and usually the ones on the picture to the above, usually those are like the changeable copy signs that are portable. One thing to note is that A-frames, the sandwich board signs, feather signs, and the yard signs that get stuck in the ground wouldn't be included in that portable sign definition. But just examples of what a portable sign is, it would be one that's towed behind by chassis or by other means, or like the one above that it's not technically on wheels, but it can be moved around almost like a miniature billboard, in a way.
I've seen many of those recently, not in Benton, but I've seen a bunch of those, and they don't look good.
That's the spaghetti dinner signs.
Yeah.
This Friday, 7 o'clock.
Additionally, signs of vacant lots, it actually speaks to itself on the definition of what a sign is in our ordinance. It's a sign advertises a product, activity, or service, and a vacant lot in a town shouldn't be advertising a service, activity, or business, except for the fact if it's for sale. Of course, there's a provision that if the lot's for sale, there's a whole other code section about the sign that gets put on the property there when it's vacant. And then this is the most PG picture we could probably find on the internet for mannequin signs. But these are very distracting. And this is brought to our attention. We haven't seen many in the Roanoke Valley, but it could be an ongoing trend. But
Southeast Roanoke, Liberty Tax, that guy was up there,
Yeah.
he's up there the other morning, 18 degrees outside.
it's funny you bring that
All I
up.
wanted to give him $10, but I couldn't get the traffic to stop, so I could do it.
It's funny you bring that up because we actually had that in-depth conversation with our planning commission about this very thing, and what we determined is that we cannot, going back to First Amendment, we really cannot ban what they call people signs or people twirling signs or doing it runs into a lot of First Amendment issues with people protesting, or you might have people advertising a car wash or other things, but it runs into a lot of issues with people because you can't judge the content of the sign. So we didn't include the prohibition against people holding signs. It's specifically a mannequin holding a sign. But we originally were trying to actually see if people, well, we weren't, it wasn't in the draft, but we actually looked into the people sign issue, and it is a odd concept. The mannequin sign is not people holding signs. We were just talking, you all were talking about balances and trying to balance that, but obviously what we're talking about tonight is effective business promotion and efficient code enforcement. And I believe our department, well, not believe, I know our department will be able to effectively balance code enforcement with, if we remove the temporary sign permit, we will be able to effectively implement code enforcement, especially when you all were mentioning signs in the right-of-way, called like the snipe signs that people put up that illegally in the right-of-way. Being able to be proactive in removing those when we can. But then also just obviously respectfully and professionally, letting businesses know way ahead of time once everything is codified as it is codified, letting them know the new regulations. And also it's already built into the ordinance, all temporary sign changes will have a 90-day grace period after their adoption. So that'll be 90 days of us just educating businesses and the public on all of these things. As mentioned before, this is what we're proposing for the removal of the sign permit, is allowing for all non-residential uses, which doesn't just include businesses, that includes churches and other places that are not residentially used, to have 24 square feet to work with. So if you see above, this is an example of the Wawa gas station. So window signs are not included in that calculation. All we ask is that they don't go above the 25% of the total area of the window and glass sign area of the entire lot. And then if they choose to do freestanding signs, either the ones that stick in the ground, like the pink ones you see up there, or the feather sign, there can't be more than 2. As you see, there's a maximum height of 4 feet. However, that exception, feather sign's more than 4 feet typically, so there's actually an exception built in. If it's a feather sign, it could be more than 4 feet. And what would be and also the A-frame sign, which is the neon green sign and the invent green near the door. The square footage of that also isn't included. So what we did here is we got someone to use Photoshop to show if they were to maximize their 24 square feet, this is what they could effectively use to advertise their business. So they could have, they could have the window signs, they could have the wall sign, the A-frame sign, and 2 the freestanding signs.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good balance. To the mayor's point, we don't want this to look like all signs, and so just leaving Vinton, there's a tobacco shop on the right across from the street from Jerry's, that adheres to our ordinances, and then you go 300 yards up the road in the county, and there's one that you can't even see the building because it's just postered with cigarette signs. So I really like this, and it gives the businesses opportunities to change their advertising and not have to pay for it every single time.
Yeah, and even in this picture, you could have subbed out the 2 pink signs for a feather sign if they wanted to.
Yeah.
This has to do with the residential use, 12 square feet and a height of 4 feet, which typically allows most people when it comes to mind, they think about political signs, but really it could be any kind of sign that they put in their yard, like any kind of temporary sign they put in their yard. And this 12 square feet typically allows for, 1 large sign, 3 smaller signs. But say they are political, it really doesn't matter if they're political. If they say something like the one up there, we don't judge the content. We're just looking at the square footage of the sign that's placed in the yard. And that's for a sign developed with a residential use. As you know, the new sign measurement rule, moving away from just having like a single shape, but actually allowing the 8-line measurement rule, it actually allows for sign contractors and developers and business owners to maximize the amount of square footage they have for their permanent sign area. So this is an example. You can see that they were able to have a tire line There's better examples with more oddly shaped logos where you can maximize the amount of square footage for your parcel. But that's just something that was added to as another pro-business approach to the sign ordinance. So they have 8 lines to work with. They don't even have, if someone is a layman, they don't want to have to break down it into 8. They could still do 4. They could do as many lines as they want, but 8 is the maximum. So someone could just draw a square around it if they wanted to do the thing. But it's typically if someone hires a sign company, they'll be able to get into that really tight detail and figure out the square footage. As I mentioned before, the window coverage, proposing 25% of the total window and glass door area of the lot. So that's the entire lot. In the past, it would be per window. This will take the total glass area of like all the doors, all the windows in the entire lot, and as long as they don't exceed 25%, so that we don't have issues like you're mentioning with certain convenience stores that seem to cover all the windows where you can't even see inside. And this is specifically for signs. We get a lot of questions actually nowadays about tinting and for like energy savings, like tinting the windows. But this is specifically for things that meet the definition of a sign. So obviously people can tint their windows, put blinds in their windows, and it wouldn't trigger this. And just like I said earlier, the window coverage for if someone's building out a storefront and they want to put the brown paper to hide their tools or hide what's going on inside, they can put up that and not have to worry about the 25% rule. This is a new sign type that we wanted to propose, and it has to do specifically with our downtown area, specifically about rooftop screening walls. So a rooftop screening wall, so roof signs nationwide, unpopular, just like bell-bottom jeans. They died in the 80s and they haven't came back, and they still haven't came back. I've done the research. Well, bell-bottom jeans are coming back, but rooftop signs aren't. However, we wanted to add a provision in here about screening walls in our downtown area, because sometimes there's storefronts and businesses that are effectively used by pedestrians on their alleys, rear alleys, and other means rather than just the public frontage that they have. This specifically would allow them to put a sign on their rooftop screening wall. So screening walls, when they screen like the HVAC equipment, this would allow for them to put a non-illuminated sign as long as they meet the parameters of the ordinance. But this is just a proposed sign type that we wanted to bring before you all, the Planning Commission and Town Council.
Has anybody done anything like this around here? Is there an example?
There's not an example, but Fairfax County, Virginia is one of the few localities that are starting to allow these things, or allow rooftop screening wall signs on either like penthouses, or like if there's like a rooftop bar, they could put, it allows for them to put a sign there, or just whenever a screening wall could effectively be used to.
So like the H&C copy, that's not what you're talking about?
No, not at all. That's more historic. And so this would specifically be, you would have to have a screening wall in place, and you couldn't make up a fake reason to have a screening wall. It would be screening HVAC equipment or some other kind of utility on your roof.
You know, I was going to tell you before you put that next slide, last slide, you know, the window signs, especially that business you're talking about on 24, that's a safety issue, especially for the police department. You know, they put a call out, that place is getting robbed, you pull up, I mean, what are you going to do? Pull that door open? No.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
Right, no
Because you
way.
can't see in it. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Would the screening wall signs only be rooftop? I guess what I'm thinking of, I know it's a county, but like Taco Shell, when you pull in that drive-through, the old, you know,
Yeah.
it was, that fence was covered because the HVAC was there. Would that count just as an example, or does it need to be rooftop?
That would probably count more towards like wall signage
Okay.
or a temporary sign.
Okay.
But no, this would be specifically for the rooftop. Yeah. very rare cases, but there are cases when this
Right.
actually does come to
maximize your space if you have it. Sure.
These are starting to be used in larger cities, is that what you're saying? or-
a few larger cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
By the
this-
way, I thought the bell-bottom jeans were really nice myself. Yeah.
So this is in addition to the 24 square feet, right?
So these
Or
would
we
be,
just
these would be
count-
permanent signs, not temporary
Okay.
signs. Yeah, these would have to be permanent.
Oh,
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would still count toward that square footage, which most all businesses in downtown have 50 square feet to work with. It's kind of a trade-off. You could use a lot on your rooftop, but 50 square feet's a lot to work with. You have a front sign that fronts Pollard or some other street like Eastleigh or Wesley, but then you have that rear one that points towards the alley if you want that additional advertising space.
But the screening would have to be there now. You couldn't put a structure up and call that screening and put your sign on it. So the only people that can use this is somebody that has a HVAC screening up there today,
Yeah, yeah.
where the building was built, and it was built like that.
Yeah, or they have a new, or they put a new HVAC unit in
Put it in.
and screen.
If they couldn't put a wall in to put the sign on and say, well, that's an HVAC. Well, there's no HVAC on your roof. Well, we're gonna put one there
Yeah, and
next week.
that's the difficulty, because, screening a vent pipe is very different than screening a large piece of mechanical equipment.
So in the town, right now, I can't think of any place in town that has a screen HVAC on the roof that would do that.
Bruce Mayer-
Could do this.
Bruce Mayer did it on the Star City Playhouse. He's got screening that road frontage
Okay.
to Gus Nix.
You're
So
right.
that is a prime location where
Okay.
someone might want to put up some screening that meets this definition.
Gotcha.
So, and there are a few examples on the back of Lee Avenue that you can see from Maple or Pollard, where I could see that there could be some application. They don't currently have screening, but if they were to choose to put that up, those would be eligible.
Well, and as people build, you've got this
Right.
in there.
But Bruce no longer owns that property,
Right.
but that's an example
That's a good example.
that would be very visible to Gus Nix as you come over Garthwaite Bridge.
You get 3 sides.
Yeah, and the idea is not to legalize rooftop signs. It's to legalize rooftop screening wall signs for these very specific cases, and that's why it can't be illuminated by any means. Kind of goes back to our old point about being distraction, which is probably the most reason why roof signs were eventually
yeah.
prohibited in most all ordinances nationwide
That's it.
over time. Slight change, but major change to non-conforming signs. There used to be language about what constituted, what kind of damage had to happen to a non-conforming sign and to its damage. And this just changes the language to any causality. So it used to be specifically to a fire or other things, but this would be any causality. So a motor vehicle hits it. Any kind of causality will cause that non-conforming status of that sign, if it's damaged more than 50% of its replacement cost, to not be able to be replaced. Which is, we have non-conforming signs. If the former language was so specific to what needed to happen, that pretty much you would never have this non-conforming signs being phased out, which it should be the goal that eventually they would be brought into conformity. So we just added that legal language into the ordinance. A few miscellaneous, just adding, we're talking about reader board signs, making sure that we have that language about how bright they can be, so that we never have a case of them being of a too bright of an intensity level. And then also a lot of discourse with our planning commission. We found out, or we were able to pinpoint a really good year to determine, and with our legal counsel as well, determine the year for when a sign becomes obsolete. And we found that the best way to put that is to align it up with the 2 years rule that typically is triggered with the non-conforming. So 2 years gives a business, if a business is vacant for 2 years, that means that the signs need to be removed because that business has not been in operation for 2 years. We were going back between 1 and 2, and 2 seems like a very reasonable time.
2 is the default under state law.
Thanks, Mike.
So I guess it'd be the responsibility of the property owner, even if it was not his business?
Good question.
Yes, yeah, to remove the sign, or in some cases with freestanding signs, sometimes they have to paint them or black them out. But yeah, they have to like remove walls, like, remove any kind of signs that if the use is no longer in operation.
Yeah, I guess, where I was coming from is just clarification of who's responsible for a sign if a business, if someone goes out of business.
Yeah, it falls on the property owner, like a lot of
Okay.
who is on the real estate bill. And
Right.
actually, there's language in there, if they don't do it, the town will eventually send a contractor out there and then assess a lien against the property for the cost
Gotcha.
to do that
Good,
work.
good, thanks.
Like I mentioned earlier about diagrams, we have diagrams for the different sign types. We also have many diagrams about what, different sign types are and how to measure height from a roadbed throughout the new sign ordinance. So any questions at this point? I think we're kind of going through the questions as we go through them.
I know you said that you were going to comment. What happens if a sign shows up in town that's just totally inappropriate?
I'll defer to Mike.
Call the chief.
Well, you can't call the chief if,
Well, this is really hard to say, but the fact of the matter is if you have a sign, if you have to read the sign in order to tell whether it meets your ordinance is probably illegal. So, Botetourt County recently went over to the same content neutral way of looking at things, and they had a sign that said, let's go Brandon, except it was the actual thing. And there wasn't much that we could do about it, because the court will just say, hey, if I have to read the sign in order to tell if it's legal, then we can't really do anything about it. And it's unfortunate, it's offensive, but we wound up hopefully people understood that it does more to discredit you when you put up a sign like that than it does to impress anybody.
Thanks, Mike. And good question. I had the same exact question. I know there's been recent articles in the paper about that exact thing, so it's good to.
The sign in Virginia Beach is a good example. I'm trying to remember what it said, but there was a sign in Virginia Beach that said, I can't remember what it was, there was something rather offensive, and it was exactly the largest thing that you could ever have under their sign ordinance. And people were just up in arms about it, and the city said, don't go to that business. Like, that's the solution to this problem.
freeze them out.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking for. If it's residential, do they meet the 12 square feet, and if it's 4 feet tall? And if it's non-commercial, 24 square feet. Moving on to ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Some potential benefits to ADUs. Well, first let me give you some types and examples. So there's different types of accessory dwelling units. I'll just call them ADUs for the rest of this presentation. But that's when you have a dwelling unit that's accessory to a principal structure, in this case, a single-family residence in the town. And this could be either, there's many different definitions for it. So this would constitute either someone converting their basement into a basement apartment, or like some people call it a mother-in-law suite, a cottage, garden apartment. a granny flat. There's like 30 different terms for these, but we'll just use the technical term. Converting a garage, even a freestanding detached ADU, or say someone has a garage with a second story, putting the ADU in the second story, and also attaching an ADU, which is attaching it to the structure in the form of an addition. Some benefits to ADUs, it provides elderly populations with the ability to age in place. So they could either live in the ADU and rent out, or we'll get to renting, the question of renting later. They could live in the ADU or the principal structure. It also, gives them, if they call them mother-in-law suites, because it's the idea that, someone's mother-in-law could live in that accessory unit, either in the basement of the principal structure. It also provides secondary income resources for homeowners, depending on whether or not the locality decides on whether they can be rented or not. And then also long-term cost savings for public utilities. And this has to do with suburban sprawl. We don't have that problem in Vinton with the sprawl, but our main driver would be, it may be able to keep people here actually with the aging in place, if they're able to keep their families on the property and allow to have a second residence, or have someone rent out their second residence. Based on the consultant's recommendation, we actually, as town staff, have recommended against the consultant's recommendation. They wanted to only be allowed in R2 and by special use permit. By researching the Valley and Newer Valley and benchmarking other localities, we find that most just allow them by right as long as they meet regulations, and most of them just permit them as an accessory to anywhere a detached single-family residence is allowed. So R1, R2, R3, and even RB, residential business. One of the general standards is that the property owner has to reside on the site. So you can't have someone who owns this property as an investment property, and then they think that, oh, they can have 2 units now. Someone has to live, or the individual who is the primary resident has to live on the property if there is an ADU existing on the property. But the major question, it seems overwhelmingly from the Planning Commission and Council based on prior meetings and surveys in the public, is that most people want these to be able to be rented out. Seems like these aren't cheap, and then also in addition, it seems like even though there's benefits to having people like a caretaker or having family members related by blood having to be the only restriction, but it seems like this would be a viable measure to allow them to be rented. So that's what we're recommending, is these units able to be put up for rent. And the owner could either live in the ADU and rent out their principal structure, or they live in the principal structure and rent out the ADU. Size requirements, you see we established a measurement procedure. Through our conversation, I talked to the building commissioner, and he's vetted, our building commissioner for Roanoke County has actually vetted our zoning ordinance, so you can rest assured that the provisions actually meet the uniform statewide building code as well. But that's where the measurement procedures for these size requirements come from, with the how to measure the gross floor area when you're determining the size requirements. Oh, sorry.
Just real fast, back on the other slide, just a real quick question. Like, how would we know? Like, how would you, like?
In the application process, we'll have to have a pretty robust application process.
I mean, because I love that. Like, the property owner has to live there. I think it's at least for 9 months out of the year, right? Something like that. They have to live on, because people travel to Florida for 3 months or something, and Yeah. But as long as they live there for, I think we put in there 9 months. I mean, this stops everybody from buying a house, building an ADU in the back, and, like, to your point, renting out. So next thing we know, we got somebody owning a whole block with, used to be 7 houses on there, now there's 14, and they're all rentals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love this. I just want to know how we would police it, or how we're going to know. And it's something we don't have to, if we even thought about that, or like how we're.
The application will be the more robust thing of enforcing this, and it actually has been tailored to be just half the calendar year, but having a more, the definition includes things about making sure that it's their primary residence. But the application will be the main driving mechanism to
I think
ensure.
the really difficult part of this is once the primary is sold, and then the new owner being aware of what they're buying into, I think that's gonna cause
Yeah.
some more problems with this down the road.
Yep.
I think it's a great thing for us.
Yeah, well, I do too. I love it.
It doesn't come without some difficulties.
Right. Yeah, I
But
can
when
see
those
it.
properties down the road are sold off and they have these ADUs in the back, explain to them that they can't now rent the primary and then still rent the back. That's
Right.
gonna be a difficulty in explaining to the realtors and/or the new property owners
Yeah.
that they know what they're buying.
Like I said, I love it. I think it's a great, like, that we put that in there, because I could just see what the future would hold for that. Benton would be nothing but investment property only.
Absolutely.
Some
That's
localities,
a danger. We have a
Yeah.
lot of rental property now.
Right.
some localities actually require that, like, part of the application, something's recorded at the courthouse, which may be something we have to look into, actually. It's actually recorded at the land records at Roanoke County's general, or circuit court. And it's actually an annual permitting procedure to verify it's continuing to be used as the way it is.
Excuse me, Nathan, before we move on to the next item, I wanted to ask the clerk and attorneys, we have a town council meeting advertised for 7 o'clock. Are we okay there, or can we continue this meeting?
Brad, I was just gonna say the next logical break is to draw your attention to the time. It is at council's discretion that we can continue this conversation. We can go as far as, and as long as you wish. However, we also can cut it at some point and reschedule a second work session. Obviously, this conversation is good, it's healthy for both, but it's probably going to be difficult for us to get through all of the 6 sessions that we had planned for discussion this evening.
Right.
Hard to determine how
Stop it and come
long
back.
and how detailed the conversation is going to be. So at your discretion, we can certainly stop at some point and reconvene this at a future council meeting.
Well, I might mention, my concern is that, we do have a council meeting advertised for 7 o'clock, and I kind of like the idea of sticking with that. That's what we do traditionally. However, council,
I mean, he made a good point. We can do that, start the council meeting, and then just reschedule another 6 o'clock
Yeah.
at the next
That work.
meeting and do another hour worth.
Yeah, I think, I've liked that too, and I also think that, you gotta keep in mind that nothing like this has been done since 1995, so,
It's gonna take,
it's
an
going to take
hour
more
it
than an
probably
hour.
isn't gonna do it.
right.
So
Good point, good point.
I would like to take as much time as we need to do it, but it doesn't have to be tonight.
I agree, 100%.
Mr.
How much farther are you on this particular section?
We could probably wrap up this section within
Be a logical conclusion?
5 to 10 minutes.
On to the next?
Okay.
For the ADUs, it'd probably take like less than 5 minutes.
To finish up
just
the ADU.
ADU section.
Okay, let's do, that's okay, folks?
Yeah.
I'm with
All right. Sorry, I just wanted
Oh,
to,
no problem.
And I apologize for derailing us at the beginning, but
that's all right. You
Good-
did.
good conversation.
It was a good discussion, yes.
So the size requirements, the minimum floor area is 300 square feet. That would be like the smallest it could be, whether, based on all those, basement, detached, the concepts that you saw before. 300 square feet would be the minimum. If it's attached or internal, so if it's a basement unit, or if it's an attached unit as an addition, the maximum square footage would either be the lesser of 800 square feet or 40% of the dwelling's finished floor area. But we've added a provision in here to protect our existing properties in the town of Vinton. If there was a property that existed before the adoption of this ordinance, it's in a way, I don't want to use the word grandfathered, but they say they had a basement, they could use the entirety of the basement and not have to worry about that 800 square feet. Or if they had a garage in place,
Yeah.
they could use the full extent of that second story garage and not have to worry about the square footage. It doesn't make sense if they're existing to have to meet these standards. For a detached ADU in a separate freestanding structure, the maximum square footage would be 600 square feet or 40% of the finished floor area of the principal structure, whichever is less. Once again, if it's an existing garage, they can use the full extent of the second floor. So Bayla Gordon in our department, she did some research and found out the average finished square footage of a typical single-family residence in a town, and the average actually is 1,420 square feet. And so we just ran some rough numbers. So using our intended or proposed maximums, if it was internal, if it was like a basement, and keep in mind, this would be like a new construction because those other ones would be grandfathered in. If it was detached, that would be a new constructed accessory dwelling. If it's attached or internal, the maximum floor area would be 568 square feet, which is 40% of 1,420 square feet. And if it's detached, once again, it's 568 square feet. So if someone wanted to build a small cottage apartment in their backyard, they could build it up to, and they had a finished square footage in their house of 1,420 square feet. They could build it up to 568 square feet without hitting that 600 maximum.
Cool.
These are the general standards. Like we said before, the owner has to reside on the premises. Obviously, only one ADU is allowed per parcel. The parcel has to meet the minimum size requirements of the zoning district it's in, and it has to be behind the front building line of the structure. And even if it's a garage that's built alongside, if it's the second floor of that garage, it has to be behind the front building line. And it has to meet all the applicable zoning requirements of a principal building if it's attached, which it becomes a part of the principal structure in our zoning ordinance when things are attached. If it's detached, it has to follow an accessory structure requirements, which is 5 feet from the rear property line, 5 feet from the side property lines. However, if it's non-conforming in terms of size, it could still be allowed to convert their basement. We just don't want the square footage of the existing principal structure to be expanded. And also, if there's an existing garage, they can still convert the garage. It's just not expanding the footprint of the existing structures or on the lot because it's not conforming in terms of size. Development standards for detached dwellings. You can have like I said, a second-story apartment above a garage, and the garage be used as a studio or a workshop or similar structure that's built in a freestanding way. And then additionally, some development standards that we've include the matching the facades so that it's cohesive, having the exterior entrances to the side or rear so it doesn't look odd. It's supposed to maintain the single-family nature of the neighborhood. So having 2 front doors kind of conflicts with that overall purpose of the R1 or other zoning district where a single-family residence allowed. Having a parking space unobstructed, not separately metering the utilities. That won't be allowed, having its own separate water meter. And using the same driveway, or unless there's another route like the rear alley, or maybe if it's on a corner lot, they can access the second street. So that's the development standards, unless there's any questions.
I'd just like to say, it appears to me the way that those requirements are written, it's geared toward additional living space, ADU or whatever you want to call it, intended for family members, basically, and I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. I do think it's considering our aging population and the fact that some folks are living a lot longer. I think it's something that's very valuable for us to have in place because that is a future market. Matter of fact, I guess the market's here now.
Yeah, did you see the conclusion of these? That by 2035, the older generation will outnumber the younger?
I didn't see that,
For the
but I'm
first
not.
time in U.S. history. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is perfect. I mean, we would, because to our point, we can't grow out. We can only either grow up or in the backyards.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission. I told Mr. Lyles today at 11 o'clock I was going to practice from 11 o'clock to right now to say, as the chairman, the good job he's done leading the planning commission. So I practiced all afternoon in front of a mirror, but thank you for your leadership. You're right, 1995 is how long it's been since we've done this. And, and as we grow in 2022, we're going to have a lot of people that are going to probably want to show up. And like Mr. Jones said, being number one, we've got it in place. We can tell them what it is, and then they can decide on whether they want to come here and do business. So naturally, Mr. Lyles and, of course, the Planning Commission and staff, thank you, because this is good stuff. I mean, it's good stuff. It is good stuff.
It is very good, and it's obvious a lot of work's been put into all this, and a lot of good work, so.
On behalf of the Planning Commission, I'll say with Bob and Sarah and Dave and myself, we put in some work, but nothing like Nathan and Anita and the planning department has put into this. It's been a long time coming, but we're getting it done. And Dave, I mean, from what Mike said, leading the planning commission, when you have Bob Billinger and Dave Jones, and Sarah, not a whole lot of leading involved. It's just a lot of learning on my behalf.
Well, I feel that we are very blessed to have awesome staff and then great committee members, commission members. So good job, folks. Good
We've
job.
also got one other piece there that's a big part of this is you have allowed us to spend some big dollars with consultants. We couldn't, there's no way we could have come up with all this stuff, reinventing the wheel, starting and doing this. Now Nathan as a hire has been good for us, but you've helped in getting these consultants, and that's where a lot of this stuff has come from. They'll, that say, hey, this isn't the way things are going right now. You're 1995, you're still thinking.
Right.
2022, when are you going to catch up? So that's one of the things that's helped.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Dave, because that is important. It's a very important document, and we want it done right. So,
Well, if we get it done, 95 to 2022, where are you going to be in, let's see, 22 and 9, that's 27 years. I think those going to be pushing up flyers in 27 years.
well, we'll nominate you for the next commission at that time, so the next committee.
Yeah. And to your point, a lot can happen over 27 years, Dave, and a lot has happened. So
Yeah.
it is time to change some things here in our town.
Yep, sure is.
Well, we as staff can't do any of this without you all, so we appreciate your feedback and look forward to the next work session.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank
Good job.
you.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. Thank you, guys. Okay. Susan, I guess in order to properly start the council meeting, we should call the roll, right?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Councilmember Lyles.
Here.
Councilmember Mullins.
Here.
Councilmember Stovall.
Here.
Vice Mayor McCarty.
Here.
Mayor Gross.
Here. All right. Again, we want to thank the Planning Commission for their attendance and all their hard work. It was a very good session, a good joint work session with the Planning Commission. And we certainly want to welcome everyone to our Vinton Town Council meeting. Can you guys hear me okay, or do I need to take this down? We okay? All right, good deal. I can always talk loud. As I said, we want to welcome you to the council meeting, and I would draw your attention to the guidelines that we have set up, and a copy of those guidelines is available at the entrance door, along with the agenda package. As always, we will start with a moment of silence, which we use here in the town of Vinton, so that everyone can pray or meditate as they see fit. During that time, I would ask you to keep this country, this community, and this council meeting in your thoughts and prayers. And most especially for all those folks who are dealing with COVID-19, because there is a lot of that. And so I'll ask you to stand for that, and while we're standing, we'll have the pledge, and Councilman Lyles, you usually take care of that.
I do, and today Dave Jones is gonna take care of that for us.
Awesome. Please stand, folks.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we can have our moment of silence, if you'd like. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to our community announcements. Vice Mayor, what's going on?
We got a few things going on. February the 4th at 7:30 p.m., Virginia Tech hockey at the Lancerlot versus Richmond. And then on February the 5th at 4:30, Virginia Tech versus UNC. Those tickets are $5 a piece, and children 12 and under are free. We have a ribbon cutting on Thursday, the 20th, that's this Thursday, at 11:30 at Boomtown CrossFit ribbon cutting. It's at 703 Tinker Avenue in Benton. There is some live music going on at Rosie's on Friday, January the 21st at 8 p.m. That's this Friday, eastbound and down. Mended Fences will be Saturday, January the 22nd at 8 p.m. So that's Friday and Saturday night of this weekend. And then Lolo Chariot is scheduled for Friday, January the 28th at 8 p.m. And so that's at Rosie's at the new stage that they have there. Want to say thank you to Public Works and to the Fire and Rescue and to our police department for great work once again on clearing the streets, making sure that you're there to make sure everybody's healthy. And we just appreciate you guys and gals so much that, and for the shout out that we got on Channel 7 about having our streets clean. That was awesome. So can't say enough about our staff. We appreciate that. We're gonna have an open house on Tuesday, January the 25th at 5 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. at the Benton War Memorial. And you're invited to come and learn about the transfer of utility assets from the town of Benton to the Western Virginia Water Authority. Again, that's Tuesday, January the 25th. So it's next Tuesday from 5 to 7:30 at the Benton War Memorial. Great time to come out and learn, have your questions answered, any concerns that you may have with the transfer of the water. And last but not least, we want to bid farewell to the chamber president and welcome in the new president. Justin Davidson has been the president of the Area Chamber of Commerce for several years. He's done a very good job, and he currently have Jason Booth that is the chamber president. So we look forward to many reports and good activities from the chamber.
You bet. All right. Thank you very much. Just to clarify, though, the public meeting is January 25th, right?
Is that what I said?
Nope, that's okay. We love you.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I did say that?
Yeah, I wrote it down, 25th. That's what I got,
25th? Oh, I'm sorry.
5 to 7:30?
27th.
I
I'm
still
sorry.
love you though, man.
All right. I apologize.
No worries, I mess up.
I thought it was,
I want you to definitely correct me.
well, that's an important meeting for
It is,
for the public, so we want to make sure everyone understands it's the 25th. Sorry about that.
No worries. Tuesday, 25th at the War Memorial.
You bet.
Okay.
Okay, all right, next item is, thank you for all that, Sabrina,
very
good
welcome.
job as usual. Next item is to request or postpone or change the order of the agenda. Any changes, folks? Yes, sir?
Mayor Gross, I'll just make a suggestion. I believe this is acceptable, but there was a second item under the work session for a briefing on the outdoor refreshment area. If it pleases council, we could potentially do that under the town manager briefing section. Being
Okay.
that we have no briefings this evening, and since staff is here and ready to present, we could move it to that section of the meeting.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yep.
So you want to have the open door,
Outdoor.
outdoor? Okay. I'm sure you're going to have to remind me when we get there, sir, so. Okay. Council, any objections to that change? If not, we'll move on. Do we need to vote on that?
I got it.
I got it, okay. All right, with that, we'll move to the consent agenda. Tonight, it contains the minutes of the regular meeting of January 4th, and also a resolution which would appropriate $393.30 for the scrap metal.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, under awards and presentations, tonight we have with us, there is Chief Chris Sayre. Chief?
It's been a while since we've been here.
Yes, it has. We look forward to hearing your report.
Well, I'd like to start off by thanking everybody for letting me come out and speak. Like I said, it's been a while since we've been here, probably about 2 years, beginning of COVID maybe,
Probably,
maybe a
yeah.
little bit before that. It's a special privilege to be invited here to provide our operational reports. As you guys are aware, we're an all-volunteer organization right across the street. We've been in operation since 1939, and then these past 2 years have really impacted us with COVID. We lost several members, not to COVID, but they resigned. They decided that this wasn't for them. They needed to spend time with their families and other things like that. So our numbers are down a little bit. I just wanted to start off with saying that. So in 2021, there were 1,421 volunteer calls. The volunteers responded to 654 for about 46% of our calls. We handled 570 of those 46. So what that means is the career staff, we went to the calls, but the career staff actually transported the patient or took care of the call for the difference. The career staff handled a total of 767 calls, and then we transported about 320 people to the hospital last year. And that's from the hours of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 days a week, and then on Saturday and Sunday, we also run from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So for 2022, we have a few plans. We hope to get through them all. The state of Virginia has purchased a pediatric treatment program, and we plan on implementing that. That's called Hand-Heavy. We're looking to increase our membership of the crew to 55 members. I think we're setting at about 35, 36 right now. We're looking at digitalizing a lot of our systems and going away from paper. Helps us become more efficient, better for the environment too. We're looking at sponsoring a continuing education weekend for our providers and providers from around the area. Fingers crossed, we're gonna be working on getting a new truck. So we'll see where that goes. Just like to thank everyone again for letting us come out here and report. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Chris. Like you said, it has been a while, so it's certainly good to see you here representing the first aid crew. Council, you have any questions or comments?
Sorry you had to wait a few minutes, but thank you for being
Oh, it's
here.
fine. I just didn't want to roll up or bust in here.
No, that's fine. Chris, just to clarify, you said your numbers were down a little. I assume that means the number of members, but I also assume you still have adequate, you have enough people to cover the calls.
So we struggled with that a little bit, and that's where we're looking to increase retention or recruitment to get our numbers back up so we can handle more shifts. In the past, we'd handle about 80 to 90% of the calls dispatched during volunteer hours.
Wow, okay.
Now, that's not, always the case, because we can have, here recently, we've been having, 3 or 4 calls back to back to back within, a 20-minute period. And it's impossible to take care of a call in that period.
Yeah.
In that short of a period. A normal call lasts about an hour if we transport to RMH, Roanoke Memorial Hospital.
Yeah. So I guess what our citizens would be interested in knowing is, obviously, or at least my understanding of how it works is, if you guys don't have the personnel to cover the calls, then our career staff certainly picks it up. Is
Yep.
that correct? So
Yes.
so our citizens will get
Yeah.
attention when they need it.
They're always covered, maybe not by the volunteers, but the career staff has a 24/7 medic truck
Okay.
in Vinton.
Great, great.
Then if that truck's out, we also have other trucks within the county that respond.
Okay, great.
And Chris,
yeah.
what's your volunteer hours again? I'm sorry.
So 7 days a week, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Got it.
And then Saturday and Sunday, we staff a truck during the day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
So if anyone's interested in volunteering and becoming a member,
We're always looking for volunteers.
best way is just to contact you folks in at Rescue Squad. Is that
Yep.
most direct?
On our website, we have an interest form. You can go on our website,
Okay.
vintonems.com, go under the membership section, and then there should be a button there to fill out your information for an interest. And then our membership captain will get in contact with you and start that process.
Yeah. Chris, it's my understanding in addition to all the great fellowship that you guys have, that all your members actually receive a lot of training, isn't that correct?
We all have to be certified by the National Registry of EMTs.
Okay.
So there's a test that you usually have to take an EMT course, which consists of a classroom portion, and then you actually go out in the field. EMTs.
Sorry.
So there's. Then you go out and you do ride-alongs on an ambulance, get some patient contacts. You set for your test, and then if you pass your test, you become certified. That certification's good, and I believe all 50 states, but
Wow.
don't quote me on that.
Now, Chris, does everybody have to be an EMT?
You do not have to be an EMT to start out with. We do ask that you get your EMT within 18 months of joining the organization.
Now, how long is that class? How many hours is that class?
I don't recall the hour count. It's usually about 3 months. If you do a Tuesday, Thursday class, or Tuesday, Thursday, and then some classes throw in one Saturday a month. Their EMT classes are offered locally through Radford University Carilion and through, it's the community college.
Virginia Western.
Virginia Western, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think it's really valuable information. Number one, we want our citizens to know that you folks are well trained when you respond to a call. And then secondly, it's a great opportunity, a learning opportunity for anyone who wants to become a member. So
Yeah.
really,
And we're set up to take people from not knowing anything, helping you get into a class, and then help you get in the back of the truck and be responsible for taking care of somebody.
right,
So
right,
there's no very low barrier to entry.
yeah, yeah. All right, well, great. So if anyone's interested, they should contact you guys or go online, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, good deal. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, sir, can I just say, I noticed, particularly this summer when we were just out like at Mingle and different things, there were some young people on the rescue squad, and that's good to see. And they were, very calm, they knew what they were doing, it was perfect. It was really nice to see younger, when I say younger, I noticed a couple that are probably still in high school.
Yeah.
So I think that's wonderful.
And the minimum age to join is 16.
Okay, good point, yeah.
And we
Well,
have special rules for those 16-year-olds. They can't be at the station, all night. We don't allow that.
Yeah, I got you. Well, we appreciate what you guys do. Thank you very much. And when I say you guys, men and women of the first aid crew, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you guys. And
Thank you.
Hope to be back soon.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, next item is Randy Lehman from the Vinton Historical Society. Good to see you, Randy.
Good to see anybody.
Amen. I agree.
Well, I apologize for two things, and maybe three, but the first one is my voice. I started on Christmas Eve with bronchitis, and I'm still on the tight end of that. As an asthmatic, a bronchitis is not it's a lot more serious than what you'd think it would be.
Yeah.
The second thing, and maybe part of that excuse is the fact that you don't have all the paperwork that you should have. I did not get it to Susan in time, but you could have a supplement to what I have here, which will include our audit report, our financial statement, our budget, our calendar, everything that you need to know about what the museum has done. And the next thing is, that might be a possible apology, is how you'd love to have PowerPoint presentations that are up on the screen and stuff like that. And in the meanwhile, somebody is essentially reading it to you as you go through. And I apologize, but I'm proud of this report, and I'm going to read it.
All right.
And fortunately, I said, my excuse used to be, well, you're not going to see it because you don't have it from Susan. And then I had to be stupid enough to bring copies to everybody. So you'll still be able to read it. But we'll start off, first of all, on behalf of the officers and the board of directors and volunteers and visitors, we'd like to express our thanks and appreciation to the council and town citizens for unwavering support of our recently revised mission statement. It's not changed a whole lot for the Vinton Historical Society, but our new mission statement is preserving the past of Vinton, East Walnut County, and surrounding communities, contributing to our future understanding of the past. That's really what our mission statement is. And considering the attendance and other physical limitations we've endured in the world of COVID-19, whether Delta, Omicron, or others, we've had a great year and obtained even greater interest and opportunities to promote our mission and aspire to make our hometown event more visible and appreciated by non-residents as well as the town. Of course, there's plenty of people in town that still says, we didn't even know we had a museum.
Yeah, that's true.
But having said that, we had close to 2,000 visitors in the calendar year, and we had 20 volunteers involved in those in those events. We had 2 college interns and 3 high school interns, so we've had more interns than we've ever had. All the while maintaining what the town has told us to do as far as our social distancing, masking, cleaning in the morning and cleaning in the evening. We are lucky in the fact that we're normally only open 2 days or 3 days a week, and then that one extra Saturday, so it's much easier on our staff and our very capable executive director, Judy Cunningham. Okay, we've identified many more opportunities for securing outside funding via charitable foundations and other corporate charity marketing programs, although frankly, we've done pretty good in the past. Our current financial team, headed by our talented and able treasurer, Debbie Pitts, also Denny Dickens and Judy as well is on that committee. We're constantly searching in and outside the box for additional means of support. Even now, we're in the running for a significant charity contribution from a local bank's charitable foundation. We're not seeking this funding for funding itself, but as you can see, as you will see from our fiscal year budget, we have numerous priority unfunded capital projects that will secure and improve the building the town has so generously allowed us to occupy, and continue the operations we put in place to educate and serve the public. Several of our pending products will start up anew in the spring, the most critical being in early March encapsulation of the basement crawl space and wall and floor sealing and dehumidification of our basement, which will allow us to do long-term documentation and artifact storage. I can't help but have heard the gentleman that just spoke before me talking about trying to get rid of the paper. Well, anybody knows anything about history and preservation, we're all about paper. But we're not about unnecessary paper. And we also are continuously collecting this on a weekly basis. You'd be amazed at what we have in our in and out boxes during the week. If we do what we want to do with the basement, it's going to be a great place to store. But as anyone who's seen the basement of that house understands what kind of work we have coming for us. Okay. In reference to our budget, in the first 4 months of our fiscal year, it appears that we've expended 30.2% of our annual allowance from the town under the collaborative agreement, which is 10% under our current annualized goal. Regarding visibility and promotion of the mission, we're active in social media, email groups, and print media relations that pretty much keep us in multiple daily connection with our target group of persons that are very interested in history and preservation. Our reach and engagement of such connections varies sometimes greatly from week to week and month to month, but on average, we're looking at monthly post-reach statistics of over 12,000 viewers per month. Now, that's not per year, per month. Post engagements, which are those that are making comments or likes or maybe sharing, is well over 7,500 viewers a month, and new page likes, which are first-timers, on a monthly basis is over 30 new first-timers. We've been around long enough that we've established a good base, and we're still adding people to that and referring them. And this is for the museum Facebook page alone. We also administer the Vinton Memories and History page for even more social media engagement. For some reason, we can't pull that down. We don't know why that is unless they only give us one bite at the apple. Over the past year, that particular page, Vinton Memories, has posted near daily photographs and stories of people, businesses, places, and events, which invite common engagement with people who are residents, former residents, and potential residents of the town. We currently have 206 followers on the museum page, 2,006 followers on the museum page, and 3,300 followers on the Vinton Memories page. We've also created a joint Instagram account as of July the 30th, 2021. I have no idea how that works, don't ask me. But we do have that. And I will tell you that was put in place by our interns.
Not surprising.
Mary Beth knows how to do it too, but we engage town residents even more so with our maintenance of the little free library box on our front sidewalk. Over the past year, we've collected over 1,300 books and distributed over 1,000 books out of the little free library, and also by sharing with other free libraries. And strangely enough, we've enjoyed voluntary donations, and I mean, we're talking about in the hundreds of dollars from book customers, and despite our intent to make it a free service, people are donating to it. It's amazing. If we tried to sell them in a yard sale, they would go nowhere, but these people are taking them for free and then giving us money anyway.
Wow.
I'm in insurance and risk management. I can't explain it. Program-wise, we've not sit back on our chairs and watched the world go by when possible under restrictions of social distancing, masking, sanitation, and ventilation. We've had a full schedule of meetings and events in and outside the museum building this past year. And I'm going to run through these without getting too technical, and of course I'll take questions. In summary, that includes the Little Free Library Organization's National Day of Unplugging celebration on March 5th and 6th, a town scavenger hunt, version 1 and 2, in March and April. Speaker Karen Warrior Wolf Herdman, who's a native Cherokee whose family originated in East Tennessee and Kentucky, had a talk on Native American tribal life in our area on March 31st. We dealt with the Dogwood Festival. Of course, we participated in Dogwood Festival April the 24th. A walk-up or drive-by ice cream social featuring Dixie Cup servings handed out on May the 1st. Opening of several new exhibits by our two Roanoke College interns, Grace Johnson and Ben Tate, in June and July. They essentially did, just out of whole cloth, created both World War II exhibits, graduation exhibits, stuff like that. They planned, scheduled, collected, and advertised. They did a great job. I'm still hoping, Grace is from Vinton, that's her home, and we hope that she's going to come back to us when she finally finishes her education. Okay, we had an online auction of collectibles conducted August the 11th, a Roanoke Valley Dulcipers concert on August the 17th, a reception for Directors Emeritus Doug and Maddie Forbes, and Maddie, of course, is the co-author of the Vinton History, 1884 to 1984. On August the 20th, we had the reception. And I want to mention that we have now actually retyped that history for a second edition. And we're adding another edition to take us forward 1984 to the current day, utilizing profiles of families and businesses and businessmen. That's a little further ahead. Our fall yard sale, September the 11th. We only had one yard sale, but it was a great success. The Vinton Fall Festival, October the 2nd. Our chair tea auction, which was the auction of chairs that have been designed, planned, and painted by local artists. We sold all but two, and I don't know why we didn't sell those two. I love both of them. But we did set limits on it. But they're for sale if anybody's interested. We have both of them for sale at the museum. Okay, and that charity auction included the Downtown Merchants window display of chairs. Several businesses agreed to do that. Some were repeats from last year. We did this on October the 25th, had that, and collected some money for our other projects. We did Downtown Trick or Treat November the 1st at a museum open house. The town Christmas decoration competition, in which we won the mayor's trophy, I would like to add. And for the first time, Fashions for Evergreens at the Hotel Roanoke. We don't know how we got in, but we got in as a Vinton History Museum Victorian Christmas tree. All of this was, of course, was in December, and we placed second for the valley.
Yeah.
We are proud of what we do. We enjoy what we do, or I wouldn't have been doing it for the last 5 years. And I will just repeat how much we appreciate what the town has done for us, and the promises that you made to me. You've always kept your promises, and that means more than anything to us.
Well, Randy, thank
And
you.
I'll take any questions that you have. It may be something I have to go grab my folder, but I got my folder if you need anything specific.
Folks have any questions or comments for Randy?
Not after a report like that.
I know.
Oh, that's great.
I always do that. I've always been told in marketing, one page, one side.
There you go.
And I'd like to point out that this is not 10 point, this is 11 point.
Yeah, for guys like me, I actually needed
It is a
to
half
hold
an
that
inch of a margin, though. That's a little cheating.
Good job, Randy.
Yeah.
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 Thank
Well, we want to thank you guys for what you do. Obviously, you're a big part of this community. People really appreciate, everything that you folks do. And we certainly want to thank you for all your hard work. And just like we mentioned to Chris a while ago, you folks are all part of what makes Vinton great. We just want to thank you for your work. And
Well, you're
please
certainly
pass that
welcome, and
along.
thank you back.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, okay. Next item is citizens' comments and petition. This is for comments that are not listed on the agenda. I don't see any. Okay. And we'll move to the town attorney. Jerry. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, if you'd come up and give your name and address, please, sir.
Carlton Brown, 106 Village Drive. And my issue discussed is public safety. Mr. Mayor, council members, all public servants, and citizens in attendance here tonight, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name, as I stated, is Carl Brown, and I'm a new arrival to Vinton. In my short time here, I've come to love this place. It's a safe, growing, and free community, and one that I am happy to raise my yet unborn son in. While attending the town council meeting earlier this month, I was greatly encouraged and impressed with what I saw. Dutiful public servants who made efficient and succinct use of their time and exhibited good stewardship of resources. The news of further infrastructure development and fire station construction made me very happy indeed and very glad to live here, and motivated me to seek further civic engagement. It's in support of that end and in support of the natural rights of all these towns' residents that I come before you tonight. I'm thankful that the town of Vinton, as well as both the counties it occupies, declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries in December 2019. The immoral and unconstitutional efforts of the Northam administration to curtail Virginians' right to keep and bear arms merited nothing but refusal and resistance. But with that administration's departure, this is no time to rest easy, but to be proactive, even radical, in support of liberty and natural rights. To that end, I petitioned the town of Vinton to declare itself a constitutional carry sanctuary. That is to say, that anyone within the town limits, whether resident or non-resident, who is of 18 years of age or older and is legally entitled to have a firearm shall be allowed either concealed or open carry of it. That no law enforcement officer will demand the presentation of a government-issued permit in order to freely exercise this right. And likewise, that no town attorney shall prosecute any such individual who freely exercises this right. I do not speak as a lawyer, and I readily admit that my layman's knowledge of the law is limited. I understand and accept that this petition may not have a legal precedence or truly a legal possibility. Neither do I speak as an activist or an intellectual. I can scarcely count on two hands the political events I've participated in since my childhood, and my highest educational achievement is a mere bachelor's degree in journalism. I speak, rather, as a free man who is proudly descended from free men. Free men far greater and braver than I who fought for our independence. No less than 5 of my direct ancestors fought in the American Revolution, and these men risked life and limb against the reigning military power of their day, all for a dream of liberty. It seems the least I can do to honor them and their legacy is to show up on a Tuesday night inside a safe, warm place and share my humble words, even if those words may only be a dream. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, and we will take that under advisement. We will ask our town manager and the attorney to look at your request and advise you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Mr. Brown. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? And I'm sorry, I was moving along so quickly there, Mr. Brown, I didn't see you jump up. Sorry about that. All right, now, Jeremy, I guess it's your turn, although I don't see anything listed.
Lots of things going on, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir, I know. You guys stay busy.
Mike took care of everything tonight.
Hey. Really? Yeah. Yeah, we had 2 attorneys here, man.
Definitely work for a partnership. Share responsibility
Yeah.
and duty.
But you did get the text message,
Into his
you
cabinet.
did get the text message about the ties, right?
I did. and
Okay,
I got
good.
a text message saying
Good,
that
good.
Somebody wasn't wearing a tie. and
Optional.
I wasn't wearing
Right, got it.
Well, I knew when Mike sent that out and it was optional, I could count on Jeremy wearing a tie, so I
Right.
wore a tie.
He's coming.
I'll bet you had your tie on when you were shoveling snow today. Always good to see you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. And with that, we'll move on to the town manager. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Mayor Gross, members of council. As we discussed earlier this evening, we didn't previously have a briefing, but I'll ask our Assistant Planning and Zoning Director, Nathan McClellan, to come forward and present the briefing for outdoor refreshment areas at this time.
Sounds good. Good to see you again, Nathan.
Poor Nathan. He's like, I'm here again.
So this actually be, yeah, good to see you all again. So outdoor refreshment areas, when they were introduced last year, it had gone through the General Assembly, and what you have before you, the draft ordinance, either an ordinance itself may not be necessary, or if we do have an ordinance, it will need to be modified, because what was passed at the special session, they actually reduced the amount of regulations inside that bill. But the major points, the high points, what this would be, it kind of takes the place of what was previously called the local special events license that the Virginia ABC gives to localities, nonprofits, or business improvement districts. And what this will allow for the town of Vinton to do is to designate an area, and within that area, anywhere where there's permanent retail on-premises licensees in that area, someone will be able to purchase an alcoholic beverage. Let's just take, for example, the outdoor refreshment area, Twin Creeks. And the present, Twin Creeks has the ABC license to sell alcohol. But when we have events like the Mingle at the Market, say someone's listening to the concert and they can also purchase alcohol from the chamber in their event. But if someone was to purchase an alcoholic beverage at Twin Creeks, they couldn't legally, walk across the alley with their beverage to go to the event. What this allows is for us to draw a boundary around an outdoor refreshment area, and then within that area, based on our license that we get from the ABC board as a locality, it would allow someone to purchase an alcoholic beverage and freely roam within that area. Now, the orders before you, obviously, it needs to be modified because when it went through the special legislative assembly, they made it more vague, and it seems like we could still designate the area, but what Jeremy and I found out is that if the town is intending on having less than 16 events in a year, we actually won't even have to have an ordinance. We'll have to work with the Virginia ABC board to designate the area, and we'll still have to have like this, safety measures in place, like we always do. But we'll just have that same license, and the 16 events, each event could be up to 3 days each, and that license is $300 per year that the town would pay to the Virginia ABC board. However, if we want to have more than 16 events, keep in mind 16 events means each event can be up to 3 consecutive days each, then it's a different license category. And if you do choose to do that, you have to adopt an ordinance. But when you adopt the ordinance, it designates the size and the scope of the area, and it constitutes us having to develop a public safety plan that has to be approved by the Virginia ABC. A lot of the rules, like you see in the draft ordinance, were very specific. There was like maximum of 3 areas in the town. They got really specific about where it could be, which we presented this to our planning commission, and we were trying to determine, beyond what was already set in the town and state code, what we would have to do, where they should go. However, based on Jeremy's review and then my own review, depending on how the town wants to go about it, it really depends on whether or not we want to go the ordinance route or not go the ordinance route. But even if we do go through with the ordinance route, the only major hurdle would be passing the ordinance, determining that size and scope of the area, and developing a public safety plan, and then that goes before the board, and then also the board also has the right to offer any other considerations for the approval of that license. But really, it was a robust ordinance requirement in the beginning, but now it's become more of like it's a very vague bill, and it seems like we just have to submit our application to the ABC board and work with them to determine what we can do. But it's very clear in terms of not having a set size. So if we wanted to, we could just designate a few blocks of downtown, which is what I believe would be recommended. And what our planning commission has looked at a few areas in town, but the big questions we'd have to ask the ABC is, if we want to have multiple areas in town that aren't connected or not contiguous, how do we approach the licenses with that? But as it is right now, you can't completely disregard the ordinance, but there's a lot of provisions in there that will be removed because of the vague nature of what was passed. So I guess I'll open the floor to questions, but then also maybe any recommendations for how you'd want to draw that boundary. Obviously, you want to have it in the downtown area, but there's no size limit.
The issuance of a license to the locality. So the locality will, in this case, the town would actually submit an application to obtain the license, work with the board to define the refreshment area, and then entities, organizations within that refreshment area, Twin Creeks, to Nathan's example, would be able to sell beers, and then people would be able to, within that designated refreshment area, walk around and go to various concerts or whatever may be going on. And to Nathan's point, you have the cap on 16 per year. If you're comfortable with that cap, and it may be the kind of thing Nathan and I were talking, we need to get Chastity involved and see what she thinks as far as how many events you would have. But if you're comfortable with 16 years, then you don't need an ordinance. You just file the application with the ABC board.
Well, I'm sorry.
Is it only, like, so when we define these areas, is that, like, my first understanding was that's like, is it only for 16 events, or is it every day?
It's 16 events that can be up to 72 hours.
Right, so I mean, like, so we only allow, so I go to Twin Creeks on a Monday night and buy, or Monday afternoon and buy a beer.
You have to stay on Twin Creeks premises.
This is only if there was an event going on that we said, right?
Like,
Good question.
like the wine festival, if it's, say, in the War Memorial grounds, you could walk to McAdoo's, or
It would be the other way
something
around.
like that. Okay, okay,
We
okay.
use private establishments who carry an ABC license would be able to sell off premises, and they could walk to a neighboring event. So we didn't intend this to be a daily thing.
Yeah.
It was intended to be associated with a
An
more
event.
public event or festival. So for example,
Gotcha.
the Mingle Markets, the Dogwood Festival, the, McAdoo's and 4th of July perhaps, I'm not suggesting that, but
Right.
things of that nature, the block party that Anthony Connor and the Connor Group put on in August, because you've got now Good Pies, you've got Dogwood's going to have evening and ABC on premises in the future. So we don't anticipate it being more than 16, at least at current numbers. We feel like we would fall below that, but there is potential. For a few years, we had some groups that were doing other events like the Food Truck Festival. And so those numbers could exceed 16 in the future, but currently we feel like we could probably stay below that. But it was really intended to kind of capture some of our newly formed downtown businesses that we didn't have a number of years ago, to give them opportunities to participate with the event, because Twin Creeks is our current example in downtown. They've indicated that when we have mingles, when we created the mingle 10 years ago, it was because there was no night and weekend activity downtown. Well, now there is. And when we have a concert on a Saturday night for the mingle, it somewhat hurts the revenue potential for the brewery, because patrons can't go there to buy and go listen to the music.
Gotcha.
This would give them more flexibility to make a beverage sale, and people could still go out and enjoy the entertainment. And same for McAdoo, same for the Dogwood in the future. It gives us a little more flexibility for the brick and mortar to capture some of the downtown traffic that we so desire, but it keeps them in the business of selling their product.
So does taking it to 16, going above 16, all that requires is for council to enact an ordinance?
And develop the safety plan.
Yeah,
What's-
the ordinance needs a considerable amount of detail. And there's still a lot of gray area in here. Then you get to the issue of the cost of a license application. You're then applying for, you still have to go to the ABC board and get your license.
We don't.
Yeah, you do, even though you have an ordinance. Only the locality or a nonprofit can actually obtain this type of license. You're doing it pursuant to the local ordinance, which is what Nathan was talking about, the fee going up so much. The open question I have, which we still, we need to interact with ABC some and answer some of these questions, is it one license for 16 events, or is it one license for each of those?
So my question is that, so if we write, because I'd like to think we'd have more than 16. I'd like to have 30.
Well, I've done the math. If we have 122 and they last us 3 days apiece, that's 300.
Probably there. So,
Bourbon Street,
No.
well, so let me ask you this. So if we write it above 16, does what you just talked about as far as the licensing, the ABC and everything, is that above 16 or is that from day one? Does it change the score of the ballgame because we write it above 16?
You need licenses either way.
Well, sure. But okay, so once again, let me ask it again. So above 16, what's the strenuous requirement that we have to follow?
Just the detail of the ordinance, the safety plan, anything else the ABC may require of us.
Yeah,
And we typically put together individual safety plans for each event as it is, particularly if there's going to be ABC sales. It's a little more robust for the ORAs, but it's not something we haven't already done. I mean, we typically do that, work with the...
Well, I'm sorry. Well, we get above 16, but once again, do we want the message to go, okay, we can't only have 16, we have 16, and somebody comes in and wants to do the 17th one, and we're like, all right, we're back to phase one or step one. If we're doing the plans anyway, and we're writing the ordinance, I mean, all we got to do is write the ordinance. I mean, I think we write the ordinance to cover everything, myself, and just go from there, is my thoughts. Because, I mean, we do have a business owner that has told me twice that he's going to bring, quote unquote, the largest bluegrass festival in this area to the town event. That's his ultimate goal. And he's told me that twice. Now, will that happen? Probably. But he brought one last year. So anyway, so am I making sense with that? I mean, is that...
Oh, yeah, well, I think we will always hopefully add more events. So yeah, to your point, we might as well go for, for the future. My understanding, I think the hard part will be is once we, if we do this, then a lot of people that come from out of town for these events, and then they, on an event on a Saturday, and they're walking around the town, and then they come back because they love venting so much on Monday, and they grab that beer from Twin Creeks, and they start walking up to the Dogwood. And it ain't an event day. So, I mean, it's going to be hard for the public to Well, back to his point, Bourbon Street. I can walk down Bourbon Street and with a drink in my hand, and it's, it's all legal. So I think that a lot of the public is going to be confused as to, you can walk around Vinton now. Doesn't have to be, in my mind, doesn't have to be an event,
But I would think the answer to that would be the cup with the emblem on it.
Yeah. And the signage.
To me,
Right, I mean, I'm just talking about, it's how we educate. If we're going to hang up signs that says, hey, it needs to say, this is a designated, you can't drink past this on these 16 events.
Well,
And also, it does fall back on the burden of the ABC holder, a Twin Creeks, a Dogwood.
That's my question.
Right. And
Their ABC, other than these assigned permitted ORA dates, they're not allowed to allow a patron to leave their establishment.
Right.
And two,
I know they'll know, ABC.
It does fall back on them.
And two, I think the answer to that is the cup with the logo on it. I mean, the police department sees somebody walking down the street with this regular cup in their hand, they realize, hey, and then the signage the same way. You go into Twin Creeks now, they got a sign half size of the door that says no outside alcohol,
Right.
To enter.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, my point was just this, if we hang up those signs and it's not an event day, and someone sees those signs, it could be misleading that, hey, this is a town I can drink in every day and walk around, if we have permanent signs up all around the town. So it's going to be a little more challenging, I think, than just saying, hey, let's pass an ordinance and go.
And I don't know that the signs have to be permanent. Depending on the size of your area, you're probably just talking about putting a sign into the street.
Right.
Okay.
well, but regardless of whether we write that ordinance for 16 below or 16 above,
Yeah, we need to write 16 above.
well, if we write it 16 below, and they go over here on Saturday and walk back in on Monday, still gonna have the same situation.
Right.
Right.
Well, you don't need an ordinance for 16 and below.
Well, I got that. Now we with you. Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Nathan.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, and the major jump in the fee is, if it's 16 or less, it's just $300 for the typical license fee for the local special events. But then when you go above 16, it's like about 3,000 for a locality to apply for that.
And I do think that is an annual fee. I mentioned before, it wasn't entirely clear, but I do think it is an annual.
So it's, okay.
And you can always do
Jeremy,
this,
I guess
right?
the moral of
Like-
the story is you gotta start doing your homework for 16 and above.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, we can always like start off with 16 and below. And if we decide that we get that 17, then we need to pay the bigger fee and move in that direction. But until then, I mean, it's no sense in spending $3,000 for
No.
17 events and,
Yeah, some of the events could even be combined if we get to that point. I mean, if we had
The
to
3
count
days.
mingle at the market, we would have like one mingle instead of with maybe 2 bands or, I don't know,
Yeah,
or
maybe.
3 bands or whatever.
So, another question would be, when we talk about those 16 events, which ones are included in that as well? Like, are we going to want people at the Dogwood Festival going to Twin Creeks and walking around the whole Dogwood Festival with the?
No, only during, like, music acts. The Dogwood started adding farmers market entertainment a couple years ago, before COVID, and that would be the permitted aspect of it, not during the general, day-to-day of the Dogwood.
So each of those events would have to obtain a permit from us or permission at
Yeah,
least.
Let's start after the Dogwood.
We were always,
Played years ago.
particularly if it's a.
Right.
There's a parade, they start
Right, you're not gonna walk around the parade with
Close
them.
down a
No.
road, I mean, they're gonna be in consultation with us to get it, especially.
But don't they start, like, for example, the Dogwood, don't they start these musical events after the parade's over with?
Well, in years past, we've had a Friday night concert and a Saturday night concert.
Right.
And even a Sunday concert held here at the municipal stage. So, we scaled back a little bit because of COVID, but yet to be determined what their entertainment schedule would be, but not likely to exceed the 72-hour window that we provide. So that would just be one event.
Yeah.
And so this is, we're still fairly early in this discussion process. We wanted to introduce it. Obviously, get your wheels turning and see what interest you had, and if you had interest in doing this, before, we set off on developing what our plan of attack is. But just in the initial kind of thought process, we feel like we're probably under 16 at this point, and I don't see that changing in 2022. But certainly down the road, as new restaurants open and they want to do their own events, which we've heard, they're going to want to do their own activities, leasing a stage from us, closing a downtown street. Those are going to trigger more occurrences. But at some point, do we want? How many do we want? How many can the police department manage? Because when we do introduce ABC, it does require additional off-duty officers. It
Good
requires a
point.
larger footprint of our involvement. So there is going to be a break-even point where, we may not want to exceed a certain number. And I don't know what that number is quite yet, but that's the part of this conversation. The devil's in the details, and we've got to work with those details.
So let me ask you this question. So I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you anyway. So if Rosie's had an event and was going to put all the vehicles that parked at Rosie's for a day in the garage and had a band outside with where we are now, you couldn't walk outside with alcohol in hand.
No, that's their own ABC permit. It would only be if we had an event at Lancerlot that the town was co-sponsoring and we wanted them to be able to leave Rosie's and go to Lancerlot and have a beverage. That would be the only need for us to have to do that. Not likely that a standalone business such as that's not adjacent to a public property or public park, like our farmer's market or the War Memorial, would it make sense? So the bingo hall, Rosie's, probably not likely that would qualify. It's going to be something more tied to a civic space, a civic event that's open to the community, not
Connected to the
just-
town.
Yeah, so.
You make a great point then. That's a great point.
So I guess where we go from here is staff is just looking for comments from council and planning commission, is that right? Or
Yeah, just your feedback. It sounds like I hear consensus that you desire to flesh this out, so
Sure.
we'll keep working on it and come back with some recommendations at a later date. It is our intent to try to have at least some maybe not the full ordinance in place, but our goal, my challenge for Nathan was to have at least a framework of this in place by the Dogwood Festival
Oh, great.
this year. And
Proceed
then,
with trying to, Nathan and I were talking about contacting the ABC, and you could begin the application process as soon as they make the forms available.
Yeah,
Job.
yeah.
and then if we, determine at some point, okay, we definitely want to do the ordinance, and I think we probably will down the road, but I think there's a lot of details we need to discuss with the chief of police and some of our community groups to see what makes sense. And involve some of their stakeholders, like like a Twin Creeks, like a McAdoo's, because, this is gonna have an impact on them too. It's gonna require more staff oversight when folks leave their business. And I feel like most of them would want this.
Right.
I know Twin Creeks does, for example, because they've expressed how this hurts their business when we have an event downtown. So I think it could be beneficial to them, but.
And if it's beneficial for them, it's beneficial for us because that means more revenue
Sure.
in the
Absolutely.
end, so.
Well, it sounds like,
We've got some homework to do. We've got some outreach with our stakeholders and develop kind of the parameters of this to make sure that we're getting it kicked off.
Great presentation.
awesome.
The only other thing I would add is, I mentioned earlier, some key legislation. We want to keep an eye on the current session of the General Assembly to make sure it doesn't change in the next few months.
Very true.
Gotcha.
And just one quick note, where we mark the area, people can also carry their beverages inside other retail establishments that aren't even beverages. Like, they could go into a clothing store and bring their beverage, as long as the business owner was okay, and then bar them from doing that. So
Oh, okay.
other opportunities for
Yeah.
sip and shops and other things like that, like events.
Sip and
And
shop.
I'm sure the
Like that,
the
sip and
signs
shop.
that you use to designate the area will conform to our temporary sign ordinance, right?
That's kind of
Yeah,
spring
it's
down
just
here.
more, just more trends and everything like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, good presentation.
Yeah,
thanks,
that sounds exciting to me. Sounds like bigger and better events, actually.
And, when you do stuff like that, it, brings in different crowds as far as, some people like to do that and so I may go to the Mingle and I don't like anything that they have to drink, and that's not true, but I want to go to Twin Creeks and get it and take it to the Mingle.
Yeah.
And so now I'm all about the Mingles again because I only drink Twin Creeks beer and when I go there. So it might bring a different, more people to our events too.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. I like it.
Pete, if I might interrupt you, I just wanted to make sure while Mr. Brown's here, do we have his contact information?
We do.
Okay, all right, thank you, Susan. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. The next item, I will ask Ann Cantrell to present a resolution regarding some donations we received.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council.
Good evening, Ann.
I have great news for you this evening. We have received a donation of $500 from AmVets, and this is for the Vinton War Memorial. This designation is not restricted to any particular spending. However, the War Memorial has let us know they primarily plan to use this to replace the flags in front of the building, which is a great expense for them, and they have to replenish several of them a year. And so this resolution will actually accept the donation and appropriate the funding down to the War Memorial Operating Supplies account.
All right, thank you, Ann, very much. Any questions or comments? How nice of these folks. And I understand this was completely unsolicited, they just,
Correct, yeah.
and not the first one, is that right?
No, for several years now they've given this donation.
Yeah, well, we certainly want to thank the AmVets, and maybe we can send them a copy of our resolution or letter, if that's appropriate.
I'll so move a resolution.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Stovall, second by Councilmember McCarty. Susan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lyles?
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins?
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall? Vice Mayor McCarty?
Yes.
Mayor Gross?
Yes, that's Vice Mayor McCarty.
We love you, Brad. You know that.
I'm glad you do.
council meeting.
Yeah,
Push it
exactly.
along.
I'm glad you do, Mike. I'm glad
Y'all
you do.
remember the last one was real short,
Yeah.
when it was just the three of us? Remember that?
Yeah.
And once again, let's single out.
Oh, did you get that?
All right, sir.
Yes, sir. The last item I have this evening As you recall, the last council meeting, a brief council regarding the parking agreement with Thrasher United Methodist Church. This is a very similar structure format to the lease arrangement we have with Vinton Baptist. And this shares in some of the maintenance costs with Thrasher Church for our special event parking that they've been so gracious to allow us to use from time to time, such events like Christmas Parade, the Dogwood Parade, the 4th of July, and so we are introducing some additional traffic that does contribute to the maintenance needs. So this is an agreement that allows us, continues to use that relationship to a mutual benefit and us share in the maintenance costs on an annual basis. So fortunate enough tonight to have Dave Jones with us, and I've been working with Dave on this agreement for a few months. And so Dave, if you have anything you'd like to add?
No, other than this is nice money for the church, we appreciate that.
All right.
It's kind of like the AMVETS thing, isn't it? If somebody just all of a sudden said, hey, we want to give you $500. So, yeah.
Well, there is some usage to it.
Right.
Yeah.
We thank you for that.
Well, it's the proper thing to do. We use your place, so I think it's absolutely proper. I'm sure there's additional maintenance and stuff. I'm sorry, did you have another comment there? Oh, okay.
15 minutes, but yes, if I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. It would be my recommendation the council authorize this resolution.
All right.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second. Oh, go
You
ahead.
second.
All right.
Oh, I'll second.
I believe we have a motion by Vice Mayor McCarty and a second by Councilmember Mullins. Susan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lyles?
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins?
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCarty?
Yes.
Mayor Gross?
Yes. Resolution passes.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I just have a few casual updates for you this evening. I just wanted to recognize Anita McMillan, our Planning and Zoning Director, and her staff. They have a couple of recent positive announcements. She did receive the Stormwater Local Assistance Fund, which we affectionately refer to as the SLAF. This is for the Woodland Place Spring Bank Restoration Project. Many of you may recall seeing those photos of staff standing in this large ravine. You wouldn't even recognize being in Vincent. So this funding is $285,000 we've received in the grant fund, and this will provide some local match. But this will restore, hopefully, that stream bank back to its natural water course and preserve that erosion from continuing. I understand from Anita that this will take care of our TMDL requirements for approximately the next 10 years.
Wow.
Restore this.
Wow.
So that'd be quite the achievement. But again, thanks for her efforts to apply for that. And then as well, Anita received some good news from DEQ that they have accepted our revised TMDL plan, which was quite the undertaking for her to get that back on track after a couple of years of being neglected. So, Anita, thank you to you and your staff for those achievements. I couldn't remember if we had announced the police department's grant for COVID overtime. So I wanted to make sure that we got that out there and congratulate Chief Drummond and his staff on that achievement. It's $25,000 that we received
Wow.
for overtime work that's COVID related. It has created quite the strain on our PD when we have staff out. So this is going to be a big assistance in relief to our stressed budget on the overtime. There's a number of items that I think Mr. Hernan,
Where's the arrow at?
Thank you for that.
I'll save him. His number, DeVoe. Work is underway. Did get underway at Gish's Mill last week. Probably a little bit of pause because of the snowstorm. But they were on site last week, so it's official. It's underway.
Awesome. Awesome.
I did want to just make one quick additional comment on the open house for anyone still listening. The open house is truly an open house, so there's not a specific time that any individual needs to be there. It is an open house, kind of a VDOT style walkthrough, so there'll be stations set up.
And citizens can come to that open house at any point between 5 and 7:30. So there's not a specific time you need to be there or you're going to miss out. The stations will be stagnant. The individuals will walk through and can ask questions or read information that we'll provide. So just wanted to clarify that. And pointing out that we do have a strategic retreat with council on January 28th. We'll be hopefully finalizing the agenda in the next couple of days and getting that out to you. We have discussed kind of the layout and the formula will be very similar to what we did last year to review a snapshot of the budget, to talk about updates and achievements of the strategic plan from year over year, and then this year we're planning a little bit more robust exercise with council for developing the CIP, because we have a couple of sources of funding to consider this year. So, and we have a long list, so it's going to be an opportunity for you to provide some comment and some prioritization of what CIP that we try to tackle this next upcoming budget year. So I believe that's it.
All right. Lots of information there. Thank you, sir. I certainly appreciate that. Okay, next item is appointments to boards and commissions. This is for the Western Virginia Regional Industrial Facility Authority. And we've got to find a shorter name for this group, but we do, huh? Oh, I'm sorry. We do need to appoint 2 individuals to that, and I understand that Cody has graciously volunteered to be the staff member, and I have been serving as the alternate, as the elected official, so if it's the pleasure of the council, I would not mind continuing in that.
Be my pleasure, Mayor. Continue.
Yes,
You
sir.
want to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion.
All right. Yeah. We have a motion by Councilmember Lyles. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Vice Mayor McCarty. All in favor of those 2 appointments, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, reports from committees. I think we'll start with the Finance Committee. And, oh, there you are.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Finance Committee met on January 10th to review several items. The main item of discussion was the November 2021 financial statements, and some of the key takeaways from these financial statements. The revenues outperforming include real estate tax, personal property tax, business license tax, franchise license tax, vehicle license fees, pari-mutuel tax, meals tax, cigarette tax, court fines, senior center rental revenue, the War Memorial rental revenue, recovered costs, and state sales tax. Revenues underperforming include transient occupancy tax and miscellaneous income. Utility fund billing revenue is also over our current budget expectations, and there are a few department funds in the general fund that are overspent on annual budget, so staff is working to provide a true-up budget appropriation on those. Cash remains strong with a total cash of $9.9 million. 4.7 million of that is restricted. Investments at the end of November were $3.3 million. And just to highlight there, the $4.7 million that's restricted is primarily American Rescue Plan funding. The scrap metal resolution was the next thing that we reviewed, and that was approved, and it was on the consent agenda tonight. And Public Works uses this funding from scrap metal to assist with building repair throughout the year. So when they're turning in scrap metal and revenue, they're asking for that to be appropriated back for just typical maintenance repair. That helps us from having to budget a higher maintenance throughout the year. And then the AMVETS donation was also included on the item tonight. And we went over that. It's primarily used for flag replacement and supplies, and we're very thankful for that organization giving us that funding. Then we also reviewed the SLAF grant resolution, and we are going to appropriate the budget, I think, at the next meeting. Because of the dollar value, we had to advertise for a public hearing, and so we have to hold that due to the amount of money that we receive. And then lastly, the Finance Committee reviewed the preliminary amounts for the 2016 write-offs for tax and utility, and this will also be brought for council action in February. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and respectfully submit the November 2021 financial report. Thank you.
Okay, Ann, thank you very much. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, if that's the only things underperforming, the transient tax and the miscellaneous, we're in good shape. Very
That's
good.
right.
Thank you.
Good, good comment. You're
Hotel will take care of that.
That's right, that's right. We'll fix
big
that.
big time, yeah. You're exactly right, Lori. Good comment, yeah. Well, if there are no further comments or questions, we'll entertain a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Stovall, second by Councilmember Mullins.
Voice is fine. Voice vote is fine.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks. This job can be quite humbling sometimes. What a night. Good grief. Chief, we haven't heard from you tonight. You got anything on your mind? Yes, sir. All right.
Mayor, thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. I know I'm not in the agenda, but I'm here to talk just a few minutes in terms of the 2 snowstorms and in terms of public safety on our highway. So as you know, the first snowstorm last week, it's kind of unexpected. You know, you have 70-degree days, and then the next day you have a snowstorm. To much of our surprise, it actually stuck on the ground and created some difficulties. Businesses shut down for that day, schools and what so have you. So it did create a significant problem. And of course, on the second snowstorm, which just occurred here recently, on both of those snowstorms, I'm here to publicly thank our community, the motoring public, which is us all, and of course, Public Works Director and his staff, the Bo.
Which we will hear from.
In terms of the first snowstorm, which was significant and stuck to the ground, which required them, of course, in their services, in that 24-hour period, we received 0 motor vehicle crashes or accidents in the town of Vincent, which is unheard of. It's unheard of
Awesome.
in any locality, and that's not an indication of good policing, but a good indication of Bo and his crew and the work that they did in our community. And of course, the motoring public for taking such a reserved and cautious route and making good decisions out there, because it's pretty easy to wreck.
Yep.
And of course, we just had this one that was pretty significant, and I guess we got another one lined up for
Friday.
Thursday or Friday, so we'll see. So much to my surprise, you got this second one, which was even more significant, required a lot of planning, which Bo and his staff have done a significant, awesome job in communicating with the police department and know who was on duty and having mitigation in place. So you get another significant snowstorm, a lot of places still shut down, a lot of cleaning still being involved, and much to my surprise again, this time we had 2 motor vehicle crashes. However, there's context. The first accident occurred on private property, so a road that's obviously not maintained by the town, and that was just circumstantial of 2 vehicles touching each other and nothing serious. And the second one was just a matter of a vehicle losing control, hitting the curb and getting a flat, so no vehicle-to-vehicle contact. So I'll take that any day. Congratulations to you and your crew. I have no doubt that they're still out there. You guys have worked tirelessly for the last few days and last week. And from the policing end, thank you very much. You've made our jobs a lot better in the snow. Amen. And I can't thank you enough for that. And I hope you keep the trend up. No pressure. But thank you so much. And I'm sure our community appreciates it. I know in the terms of social media and instant gratification, where you can put your posts out there, you guys become quite a hot topic. Some positive, some negative, but when you can come up here and say that our town on the first snowstorm didn't get any accidents, and on the second, very minor, that's a total win in my book. That's something that I'm very proud to report to you all. So thank you very much, Mayor, for the time.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. And we wanted to save the best for last. Yes, sir.
Well, he's still here. You need to be aware that there was a wreck down at the famous railroad underpass about a month ago. Vinton had its side all together. Had the posts up, road closed. City of Roanoke, where it came from, had nothing. All those people that came down Wise Avenue could have been turned off back on 8th Street. Nothing done. Vinton had its stuff together. He was there personally. The city did nothing. I just happened to get caught in the city side and wandered and walked down there. And it was amazing to me, and I was very proud to be a Vinton resident, seeing what Vinton did and the city didn't.
I appreciate that. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yep, we get a lot of accidents and what I guess the community calls it the can opener now. Other states went ahead and installed a camera, I think for their own amusement. Beneficial purposes. In that case, that is very true. We do an exceptional job once again because you guys come out there and put some road closure signs well beyond there because it does create a jam. Not only does your staff do that, but they go ahead and go towards the city side when feasible and just throw the signs up there too because we're only going to pay the price if we don't. So not only do we take care of ours, but you guys do facilitate the city side. So once again, thank you. And I appreciate
All right.
those words.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for those words. Yes, sir.
I'll just keep adding. I'll speak for Cody and Bo. They are working with the city of Roanoke to do some cost estimations for some additional signage to be put on the can opener.
Awesome.
So, that exceed the maximum height.
Right.
You know, hopefully they'll pay attention. I mean, there's signs there.
There's signs there now.
Well, yeah,
These are a little more visible, a little more eye-catching.
Flashy.
I mean, the visibility, when you come around that curve up there, the visibility is a long distance to that bridge, and that sign's flashing. It's like, it says 13 feet 6 inches. I'm ready to survive.
I think I can make it.
It's a good idea.
Notice that every vehicle, and what it is, I think, well, not every one of them, but the majority of them are all like rentals. And
Yeah.
people don't understand that they're
Yeah.
driving something that's 13 feet high.
Yeah.
They're gonna go through.
Drivers.
Right.
It's the rental.
Yeah, it's-
market.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. But
There's a lot of those.
But I am glad to hear that you're doing that because, I mean, anything we can do to help the situation, and of course, we always like to work with our neighbors on those things, so
Maybe
that's
we could
great.
just store some signs at Bob's and just have them put them out for us as it happens. Just-
As long as it conforms to our temporary sign
That's
ordinance.
right.
That's all the wording correctly.
Yeah. Bo,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. Bo? There,
The bow.
I didn't forget you. I wanted to save you for last because we want to congratulate you and your guys and ladies on the job.
That means a lot to me and my team and our team, I guess. And I've been passing along all the good comments we've been seeing and hearing. And yeah, we're tired, but they're still getting it. We by far we have the best team out there for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your work.
Mayor and members of council. We was unable to have a Public Works Committee meeting on the 12th due to some issues, but I just wanted to come out here tonight and just give you a brief update of what we would have talked about. Signal light at 3rd Street, the parts are in, everything's here, so we should have that installed by the end of January.
All right.
We also have the parts in for PFG, and that should be also done by mid-February.
Oh, awesome.
We have talked with AEP. We have the lights for Hardy Road from basically bypass to the town limits. It's going to be about 17 of them, and also 2 additional poles. And we're just working with AEP now to schedule that work.
Cool. Great.
On the meter project, it's going fairly well. At 5,189 meters, we have 1,550 meters of the residential done, which is 33%. And we have 323 meters done on the commercial side, which is about 59%. We've done the private stormwater repair for Ms. Shepherd at 116. Basically, the 100 block of Poplar to Blair, that's been completed. And then also on our Mountain View project, the geotech study has been completed, and we're also in the middle of, well, we're getting ready to set up to have a meeting to find out their findings and then see what our next step is from there.
Okay. Great. You guys have been busy, and again, thank you for your work. It's, you guys did an awesome job, and obviously you're doing a lot more than clearing snow, but we know that's been a big job, so thank you for the great work you've done. You know. Council, any comments?
We need some of those sweatshirts, that's nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job, Bo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
Great job. Yeah, please pass that along to your crew.
All of
We
them.
really appreciate that.
Yes, bless their hearts.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
for
now
your support.
trash is doubled up this week, and they're even more busy, so,
Yeah.
yeah, thank them for us.
All right, we will. All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, we will turn it over to council. Councilmember Lyles, you have anything further this evening?
Nothing that we haven't already talked about. You know, the snow removal, like we've been talking about the whole day, was just excellent, and our citizens are very lucky that that we all live in this wonderful town. And then I think Sabrina mentioned a bunch about Rosie's, but the other thing that was all over social media is where's those lights coming from? And so they had a pretty good grand reopening as well, I think. And it was kind of neat that to see that all over social media and all the videos of their spotlights going off and nobody really knowing what it was. It was kind of a good advertising tool.
Yeah, it was.
So, and that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate your earlier comments about the signs. Good job. Good
Thank
job.
you. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Just one more time, January the 25th, which is Tuesday, open house. You can come anytime from 5 to 7:30, or you can stay the entire time, whatever you wish. And it's at the Benton War Memorial to talk about the water.
Very good. Thank you for emphasizing that.
You're welcome, that's all.
You betcha.
Everything's pretty much been covered. I agree with all of it. I just wanted to say to Mr. Lehman, that book about Benton's history used to be my favorite book in the whole world. I carried it around. I was 11 years old. I loved that book. And if there's going to be another edition, I'll be right there when you have
You
it.
bet.
Thank you.
Bet. Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good seller.
Okay,
Oh, good.
okay, perfect.
All right. That was great. Yeah.
Well, as you know, I missed the last meeting, but I want to diverse a moment and go back to the people or person that had the idea about the Santa Crawl. In my opinion, this is why the Santa Crawl, why we do it. We were coming down, I think Jefferson, we'll stay with Jefferson, and there was a mom and dad and a little boy standing on the side of the road. We did our thing, we stopped, get the stuff to Santa. He gets off the trailer, goes over, hands the little boy the stuff, kneels down in front of him and says, I'm paraphrasing, "Son, what would you like to have for Christmas?" Him, the little boy, in a stern look and a finger, pokes Santa Claus right here and says, "I don't tell you what I want for Christmas unless I'm sitting on your lap." Santa stands up, comes over, gets on the end of the trailer. The little boy puts one of those Santa Claus hugs around him and tells him what he wants for Christmas. So to me, whether we ever have a Christmas parade again, but that Santa Crawl, to me, that's of course what makes it to have that right there. So I didn't get a chance to say that last month or last meeting, and of course, yes, to you and your staff, but to everybody, to all the staff here. You know, we've got, with all the work that's done into 2022, we start out good, and it just takes all that momentum that we've had from 2021. So it's going to be a great year for the town of Benton. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And I certainly agree with it. I think with you, we're going to have a good year. I'm convinced of that. And you're right, the Santa Claus is awesome. I too wanted to thank Public Works and actually all of our staff, police department, everyone, because any of these snow events causes extra work for all of our staff. So we appreciate the work they've done, that's for sure. And I don't want to steal any thunder from the planning department, from Anita or Nathan, but I did want to pass along something. As I had the opportunity to attend the meeting, the steering committee for the Route 24 pedestrian and bike accommodation study, and very, very interesting meeting, very insightful. But the main thing I wanted to pass along is, number one, our staff comes prepared. But, we talk very often about one of the visions that council has to make this a walkable community. Well, that's more than just talk. We're actually working on it. Things like this do take time, and you have to work through the entire process. But just want to congratulate staff and express how proud I am that they take our strategic plan serious. When we said we wanted this to be a walkable community, they're working on that. And of course, that's one of the steps that the planning department is carrying out now. And so it was just good to see that happening, So someday, hopefully real soon, we'll celebrate some of the accomplishments of that study. It's been interesting thus far. The other thing I wanted to mention briefly, we are very proud to have 2 young people in our community that's listed on the 2022 40 under 40 list this year. One of the gentlemen is someone that I think most of you guys know is Justin Davison. He was president of the chambers you mentioned earlier from 2017 to 2022. He's an officer of elections in Roanoke and Bedford County. He has served as the service chair for the Rotary Club of the Blue Ridge, New Generations. He's also served on the Vinton BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I personally can tell you one of the things I enjoy most about Justin, and it's something I see in a lot of people here in Vinton, and I'm very thankful for, is his passion for this town. He really loves this town and enjoys being part of the town. The other gentleman on the list is Wesley Brew. Wesley's held several positions in New York Life's Council. He's been the executive council president and chairman of various committees and subcommittees. He's also been on the foundation of the board of directors for the Roanoke Rescue Mission. I think that's a great thing. So and as you folks probably know, he works with the Connor Group here in the town of Vinton. So we're very proud to have both of these guys here in town, and really, I get excited to see young people like that being involved in things here in town. So very proud of these. And if I remember right, one of our staff members wasn't Chastity on this list.
Brandon Altario was on the list last year.
Okay, it was Brandon. Okay, I'm sorry. And so
Pete's too old to be on the list, ain't he?
I'm not sure.
You older than 40?
Quite a bit.
Because I'd have put you on there, Pete.
We need to start a new category.
That's a list I'm not gonna make.
Yeah.
Employees that we'll be pushing.
All good. Yeah.
Back when I would have qualified, they didn't even have a list. So and that's true. Oh my goodness, what a night. Thank you folks for putting up with all my mistakes. Like I said, it can be a very humbling job. Anything further come before council this evening? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Y'all want to hang around?
No, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
And a second, all in favor signify by leaving. Thank you, folks. God bless you.
Hey, man, we're gonna get together and talk about this.